Well, if this weekend didn't make you blow a gasket, I don't know what will. Welcome in on this Monday. We're happy to have you. Talking Titans and Vols, both had less than ideal results over the weekend. 615-737-1045. Good morning. Lucas and Jackson and me, are with you until 1 o'clock, as is the custom. Where you want to start? Actually, do either of you want to wear the sad boy hat today? Because I feel that you are probably sadder than I am, and I have erred in not getting you two sad boy hats yet. I will do that because now I know you to officially be sad boys.
That is true, but don't bother getting me a hat. I'm not a hat guy.
I am a hat guy, and I am a sad boy, so it fits today.
Okay. I wear the sad boy hat every time the Titans lose, and even if it doesn't go with the apparel that I've got on, because there is nothing but sadness around that football team. We should probably start with the Vols, though, because one team was actually competing in a playoff game. The other one was, trailing 38-7 before they decided to show even the slightest sign of life. So probably the Vols is the place to start today, and you are welcome to express your opinion on either of these games, be it the Titans and the Colts yesterday or Ohio State hosting Tennessee. And listen, the Tennessee takeover was real. I truly hate it for the fan base. Like, they showed up. They were there to support their football team. Your football team did not show up in kind. They did not represent you properly. You're welcome to process that however you want to process that, but I was very disappointed on behalf of the Vols fans, just the way I've been disappointed on behalf of Titans fans this year. But that was a pretty tough thing. Did you even consider either of you going?
No.
Yes.
I had Titans duties on Sunday, and I will say, in the third quarter of that game, I could not stop thinking about how happy I was that I was not there. There was a takeover. I mean, it looked like 30%. It was insane.
Well, Kirk Herbstreit got crazy with it and then said
40.
And Chris Fowler goes, what?
Yeah, I don't know about 40, but man, if it wasn't close to 30 in College Game Day, it is a sea of orange behind the College Game Day set. Hardly a scarlet shirt to be seen watching ESPN in the morning, but that's about the way to sum it up. Fan base showed up, football team did not. You wondered which version of Ohio State you were going to get. Would it be the team that we saw for the majority of the season, the team that we saw come within a play of knocking off number 1 Oregon on the road? Would it be the team that showed up against Michigan? The answer is we saw the best version of Ohio State showed up.
Oh, yeah.
The best version of Ohio State is miles better than the best version of Tennessee and has a chance to go win a national championship.
It was just over so quickly. Because it was such a great lead up, and you worked your way through the rest of the college football games. Obviously, Indiana was not competitive against Notre Dame. Obviously, SMU was arguably the least competitive of these teams that participated in a college football playoff game. It was a non-competitive weekend in the first round of the college football playoff. And the NFL games on Saturday were fine. Unfortunate for the Houston Texans that Tank Dell got lost. But I just spent all day screwing around in Indianapolis waiting for this Tennessee game to start. And the electricity, I can't imagine what it was like in the stadium. Jackson, the phone is ringing if you want to take some phone calls. 615-737-1045, the number at your convenience. The electricity through the television broadcast, even in the pregame, mostly in the pregame, obviously, was palpable. I mean, the videos that were being put out on social media of Rocky Top echoing through Ohio Stadium. Ross Dellinger, I believe, had the viral video, and it was shocking how much orange was in that stadium. For one fan base that didn't really feel like it wanted to be there, and the other one who could not have been more excited for the opportunity to compete in a college football playoff game. And for Tennessee, 10-3 is a good season. Like, if we'd have said 10-3 in a college football playoff appearance at the start of the year, you would have said, okay, sign me up.
Yeah, mission accomplished, right? 10-win season with the goal of making the playoff.
Mission accomplished is a little. The mission is always, if you are competing in a program like Tennessee, to be competing for national championships, and college football playoff berth did allow you the opportunity to compete for a national championship.
Okay, now hold on. The stated goal before the season, that the goal for Tennessee, I said that the expectation for Tennessee should be to get to the 12-team college football playoff.
Yeah.
A lot of people disagreed with that, right? A lot of people thought, I don't know if this roster is there. I thought that is the baseline, that if Tennessee did not reach the playoff, disappointment. If Tennessee does reach the playoff and then see what happens from there, mission accomplished. We can't act like we came into this season thinking that Tennessee was a legitimate national championship contender. We had no idea what Nico Iamaleava was going to show us, if they would be in the playoff, if they would get enough meaningful wins. So as a whole, the 2024 season, a success for Tennessee. As hard as that is to see after a 25-point loss to Ohio State.
Yeah, there's some comments on YouTube like Bjern2 saying mission not accomplished. The trophy room is still empty. And I get what you're saying. I think it's reasonable. I just think the idea of mission accomplished when you lose 42-17 is
fair enough. No,
a tough phrase to kind of wrap around what was a really, really disappointing ending to what was ultimately a successful season.
They just showed
their program that is building towards the national championship.
Building towards something. They just showed they're not there yet. Right.
Correct.
And we didn't expect them to be there, to be national championship good. We thought they might be national championship good after the start to the season and the win against Oklahoma. And then we saw what happened to Oklahoma down the stretch, and Tennessee slipped up against Arkansas, and we sort of recalibrated things. But I think going into this game, we talked about it. Tennessee kind of had the house money feel. Ohio State had all the pressure. Now, things are different when you lose by 25 versus losing by a possession. So I understand fans that are feeling the opposite of that right now. But there are things that need to change and need to improve in order for the program to continue the ascension. But 2024, taking a step back with the big picture, was still a big step for Tennessee as a program. And the proof was in the pudding Saturday. They are not on that level yet. So the next step for them is to figure out how to get to that level in terms of talent acquisition, maybe staff changes, whatever it might be. That's what this offseason's about for Josh Heupel.
You said they were going to win, though.
I did, yeah. I picked them. Now, I said neutral me picked Ohio State, but I said I allowed the homer me to push it over the edge.
What we talked about was the first quarter, how important the first quarter was going to be. And when that first
couldn't have gotten worse.
When that first quarter was over and turned out, Mike Felder of Bleacher Report and Stadium, who joined us on, was that Friday that Felder was on? Said basically the strategy for Ohio State should have been what they didn't do against Michigan, which is you have 3 pro wide receivers, you idiots, just throw it up to them. And turns out that really, really works.
Yeah.
Against a defense that was supposedly elite but did not have answers. And we'll talk about Tim Banks. We'll talk about Josh Heupel. We'll talk about Nico Iamaleava. I'm running out of things to say about the Tennessee Titans. That was disgusting. Do not let the score or the messaging afterwards from the coach at the podium convince you that was actually a one-score game, even though the score reflects that it was a one-score game, 38-30. It was not. The Colts got up 38-7. They essentially quit playing, and you played well enough to make it a one-score game and still lost. That football team continues to be an embarrassment. They were on track yesterday for their 8th. They got out of it, but their 8th double-digit loss was very, very much in view. And frankly, to me, even if it wasn't a double-digit loss, it still feels like one. Because Anthony Richardson, how many passes did he attempt? 11. 11?
Yeah.
He completed how many of those 11 passes? He completed 7?
Yeah, with an interception. Yeah, that's the crazy thing.
And you got smoked.
Gave up more rush yards than the Tennessee Titans have ever given up since moving to Nashville.
Brother, since 1961, basically since the franchise was invented.
Yeah. Was it the Dallas Texans?
Correct.
Right. So before they were even the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs, before they were the Chiefs, is the last time you gave up that many rush, or you didn't give up that many, but you get what I'm saying. 335 rush yards given up without even the threat of a downfield passing game?
Not even remotely outside that one touchdown. And listen, there was a deep ball to Ridley that got wiped off the board because Dylan Radins had a hands to the face penalty. Brunskill had a hands to the face penalty, which negated a big play. Outside of that one touchdown pass, that 38-yard strike from Mason Rudolph to Calvin Ridley, they didn't have jack. And I mean, the locker room after the fact. We'll talk about some of the things that were said in there. It's not finger pointing by name, but it's basically turning into finger pointing. And that is not something that you can afford to have. That's the one thing that football players protect themselves the most against. I don't think the coach really has any answers. The coaching staff, I won't just make it about Brian Callahan, they do not have any answers for why this team spirals as badly as it does. And it was truly, it's the fact that it doesn't even make the top 5 most disgusting performances that they've had this year, even in the moment as they give up the most rushing yards since they moved to Tennessee 26 years ago. The most in the NFL by a mile this year. Again, I asked the question, is ownership actually paying attention to the product on the field when last year was deemed, quote, unacceptable? Guess we'll have to wait 2 more games to find out. 615-737-1045 is the number. If you want to jump in, we'll take your phone calls on the Titans. Coming up next, typically we do a stock up, stock down segment. I guess we'll work our way through that. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Oh, this is so appropriate. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. By the way, the schedule for the rest of the week, it's me, Lucas, and Jackson today. Then it's me and Jackson tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. You're getting out of town?
I am getting out of town after the show today.
Oh, so that means that we're doing Show Christmas today?
I suppose so. I'm down.
Okay.
That's cool.
Very good. You don't sound terribly prepared.
Oh, I'm prepared.
Nobody believes that. That's about as convincing as your team's 42-17 loss at Columbus. But that's not the
those
one that
digs are just going to come all day, aren't they? Bud?
No, it's not even a dig. I got so tired of, because we're gonna talk about the Titans, and we'll take the phone calls on the Titans because there are phone calls on the Titans. But I just got so tired on Friday evening of the Kirk Herbstreit narratives that was being promoted on social media about teams that don't belong in the playoff, when an 11-1 Big Ten team is always going to belong in the playoff, and a 10-2 SEC team is always going to belong in the playoff, and then how quickly the SEC people pivoted to, this, that, and the other, after their team got more embarrassed than the 11-1 Big Ten team. Like, it was exhausting on both sides.
Yeah.
Big Ten people saying, the SEC teams need to put on their mittens when they go to Columbus and play real big boy football. And, SEC people doing that vice versa with Indiana and SMU and everybody else that lost.
Yeah, the discussion with the benefit of hindsight was a little bit exhausting over the weekend.
No, I don't want to take digs at your college football team. I wanted your college football team to win, because now we have nothing this week. Because it sure as hell ain't going to be the Titans. And I don't know if people are ready for me to start talking college basketball on December the 23rd, but we're close. God knows we're close.
Oh, there is plenty to talk about. Tennessee season is over, but there's a lot to talk about in terms of kind of the next steps for the program under Josh Heupel, as he brought them out of the depths. He did that, and that's a huge credit to him. It was only a couple years ago that Tennessee was floundering, absolutely floundering, and they're not anymore. They're winning 10 games. They're beating Alabama. They're beating Florida. But the next steps create a very interesting conversation for the offseason that's to come.
So we'll get into that throughout the course of the day, and honestly, the course of the week. But typically we do stock up, stock down here. Yeah, I guess. Nick Folk didn't play yesterday, so the only stock up that I've got is Morgan Cox, just because he exists and also wore an elf costume to the game yesterday, which I appreciated. Nick Folk was Santa, even though he didn't play, and Morgan Cox was elf. So there was a slight bit of joy beyond that. And I don't know what the fan base wants or expects. There are some of you that were responding to messages on social media yesterday saying, well, you should have never expected them to be good this year or to be better than they've turned out to be. Which is fair. I picked them to win 7 games. The over-under was 6.5. We thought that they would be able to manage that. Listen, Vegas is rarely this loud wrong, and they were loud wrong on this particular team, because nobody could have expected how badly this was going to go.
Yeah, I don't want to do the revisionist history of, well, what did you expect? We didn't expect this.
No.
Let's not sit here.
Not a single solitary person expected 3-12 with 2 games left, a legitimate possibility that they could get swept by Mac Jones when they go to Jacksonville this weekend, because they, for their coach grandstanding the way that he did on Wednesday with, the whole thing of, and sticking up for his team. I'm not going to kill Brian Callahan for sticking up for his team. I thought it was a little performative. It didn't seem to matter because they still lost, and they lost pretty definitively despite getting somewhat back into the game in the second half. But, I mean, do we even do stock up, stock down today?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, with 2 games to go, the only conclusion I have after yesterday, my mind is boggled by this team. I'm confused by this team.
Did you do talk back last night?
No.
Oh, thank God.
Brent did talk back last night.
For your sake.
I've got it next week when they play Jacksonville on the road. But they just confused me. I'm confused at the way they allowed well over 300 rush yards without even the threat of a downfield passing game to go down 38-7 and then figured out a way to make it a 1-score game late. I'm confused at the way that one thing, it seems, has gone terribly, terribly wrong in multiple games. At least one thing has spiraled, whether it's special teams in the early part of the season or the Detroit game, run defense in the Washington game or the Indy game yesterday. meltdowns, turning the ball over on offense, quarterback issues in the Bengals game and early on in the season. I'm so confused by when one thing gets shored up, how another thing spirals. And, not just performs poorly, but bottoms out.
Craters.
It's mind-boggling to me. I just sat there after the game ended yesterday thinking, I don't understand what I just watched. I can't even comprehend a team that allowed 335 rush yards and then turned around and made it from 38-7 to 38-30 late. I was so confused at the end of the game. Like, what are we watching here? What is happening with this football team?
And most fans feel the same way. You're going to hear from Brian Callahan. You're going to hear from Jeff Simmons. You're going to hear, we'll get to your phone calls here because I do see several of you waiting to talk about the Titans. But I do want to focus on one comment that I see in the FNM Bank chat. And again, it's just one person. It's not representative of the majority of you. But it's Andy. Forgive me, Andy. I don't know how to pronounce your last name on Facebook, but it's Andy G. Buck is becoming so unbearable to listen to lately. I like listening to all sides of Titans coverage, but this constant bitching about coaches losing their jobs is becoming tiresome. Brother, 3-12. Like, I don't want to talk about this either.
Well, it's your tone.
No, I have tone problems. For sure. For sure I have tone problems. I'm cognizant of that. But, like, what else is there to be said other than they are 3-12? And I don't know how you look at this team and have any semblance of confidence that the people who are currently tasked with managing the football team and who have clearly failed so spectacularly to do so, I don't understand how there's anybody who's prepared to justify what the hell this franchise has done. So I work against tone issues my entire life. There's only so much I could do about that. But they are more than welcome to win a football game and shut me up.
Well, it comes back to what's their biggest problem? Because that's what confuses me.
Ugh.
Is it quarterback? Because that's been a big one. Okay, you switched out the quarterback. The offense was more on time, on schedule, I suppose, but turnover issues persisted. Is it defense? Is it run defense, which has been fine for all except 2 games where they have bottomed out. Maybe 3 games when you go back to the Green Bay game. But on aggregate, in total, has not been in the bottom third of the NFL. Defense, in almost any statistic except for forced turnovers, has not been in that category in the NFL, but it bottoms out in certain moments. Is special teams their biggest problem? Because that has also spiraled in certain games, and that's been shored up, I suppose.
It's been, they had Justin Hardy made a nice play to down that punt at the 1-yard line and force the Colts to go 3 and out on their first possession, or force the Colts to stall out in that first possession. I don't believe they went 3 and out on the first possession, but still, like, it's things like, all right, let's win. We've won the coin toss. Let's take the ball. And then you go 3 and out. And then you have the first half that you do and everything starts to spiral and you say, okay, reset, coming out into the second half. And what is the first play? The first play from scrimmage
70
is
yards.
a 70-yard touchdown. And you're just looking like, I am also tired of my own tone because I am tired of such bad football. And I don't know how there's anybody that can look at this seriously and say, yeah, but. In whatever the argument is, yeah, but no. Not at 3-12 and coming off routine embarrassments. So we will not do stock up, stock down today because all I have to say is bad things. Stock down.
Well, I think
trading floor closed.
Let me diagnose your tone issues a little bit.
Well,
I think
everybody in my life has been trying to diagnose.
Here's where I think it comes from you. You do go about this as though this is the first time you've been around a bad football team.
It is.
Right?
It is. Well, 3-13 was my first year. Marcus's rookie year was my first year.
But you weren't like covering the team.
I wasn't traveling every day.
Yeah.
This is different.
So sometimes when you talk, it does sound like somebody that's never seen a 3-win season before.
Never in my life.
Right. So, and that comes across. Now, that is not a reason to say that it's okay because you've seen it before. But I think where a lot of people are at, I think at this point where the yeah buts come from, at least where my yeah but comes from, if you're talking about, well, they're 3-12 and they have to clean house, and where do they go from here? They've got to start from ground zero.
No, I haven't said that they have to clear house yet.
I feel like you've said everything but that. I feel like you've tiptoed around that without saying that.
Until the end of the season to make any kind of final declaration because, these people Their jobs are important. Their families are important. And before I make any kind of definitive statement like that, I want to see the full thing.
So, but what could Jacksonville and Houston games meaningfully change for you? Because I feel like you're there. You just don't want to say it.
Correct. I am waiting until the season is done, just the same way that, many of you would argue that they should have given Will Levis the full season and that benching him accomplished nothing, which clearly it accomplished nothing based on yesterday's results and yesterday's level of quarterback play. Maybe it doesn't accomplish anything, but I feel like if I'm going to go there, then I need to wait.
Okay. Here's my but on that, though. We know how many things this team needs. Quarterback, pass rush, right tackle. The list goes on and on and on and on. And I think the idea of adding to that list, coach, general manager, and everything else just continues to set you back and back and back. And it
sets you back from what, though?
I understand.
I mean,
from the timeline that you're on to try to go on a road to fixing this thing.
They don't progress, though, Lucas. They don't make progress that would indicate that there is anything there that they're actually building upon, because they have the same. It's something else, one thing, or maybe two things, depending on the game, that full on bottom out when they get something to even league average functioning. And I don't know how you could look at this and say, yeah, but any progress that they might have made, please, I'm begging you, show me the progress, because I've heard about it bubbling under the surface or being there under the surface the entire time. And then I watch games like yesterday and I throw my hands up and I say, I don't care what's going on beyond the surface. 3-12.
Yeah, there's nothing to defend right now, right? Like, it's hard to stand on anything. If you want to make the case for why nobody should lose their job and they need to keep kind of pulling on the rope with this thing.
And I could do that.
It's hard. There's not any ground to stand on. They have 3 wins. They've done nothing consistently well this year, save for, not give up in games and stay in games and keep playing and all of these things.
Were the Colts still playing up 38-7?
Well, they were down 38-7 and they made it 38-30. Like, that happened. It is what it is. That happened. They were a third down stop away from getting the ball back down by a touchdown outside of the 2-minute warning.
Yeah, and I'm told there's no moral victories in football.
No, there's not. There's not.
It's just they let an opponent get up, an opponent that does not have a downfield passing game, get up 38-7 on them, and then they eked back into it. And so congratulations, you're tough enough to lose 38-30 instead of 38-7.
But when's the last time we saw a franchise in the NFL, go total ground zero? The Washington Commanders last year. I mean, all the way up to the new owner, coach, GM, roster. It never happens. Happened with the Commanders. They had the number 2 pick in the draft, and they were guaranteed to get a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback that had one of the best single seasons statistically in college football history in Jaden Daniels. And we see what he's doing, and he's got it. And he led them to a crazy win against Philly yesterday, and they've got a winning record and somehow are still in contention for the NFC East. So with the Titans, there is no path forward like that. And I understand the argument of there's not been progress to kind of hang your hat on, but I also understand the argument of that doesn't mean that you just keep moving backwards by cleaning house and continuing to set yourself back and back and back further and further from where you already are.
No, I think if they did it, it would be an indictment on the franchise, which is why I don't think that they will do it, because then it would be directly looking at them and being like, no, you're the dysfunctional ones, not the people that you hired here to fix this thing and then couldn't, and then you decided to reset the board. I think not everybody, because there's a bunch of people that are under contract there, that contracts expire, and I think that there will be some significant change within the organization outside of the top. Like, I think the people at the top are coming back, but I really, truly believe that only because it would be such a hideous reflection on that organization that they're trying to save face any way that they can, because they're embarrassed, and they should be. All right, happy stuff. 12 Days of Christmas. It's 104.5 The Zone's 12 Days of Christmas, sponsored by O'Charlie's, where each day from December the 14th through the 25th, we will be giving you a chance to win great prizes on our Facebook page. So like or follow us at facebook.com/1045 The Zone. Prizes range from concert tickets to autographed items to team apparel and more. For more info on this contest, visit 1045thezone.com/contests. All right. Let's go to the phone. 615-737-1045 is the number. How about we start with Johnny?
Hey, Buck. Good talking with you guys this morning. I'm I was going to sort of go down a rant path about leadership, and I think is that this organization has a significant lack of leadership. So I'm going to pose a question to you. My question is, and I totally agree with you. I think is that the Miss Adams is Miss Amy is embarrassed. I think Rand is probably embarrassed. I don't even see him on the sidelines at the end of the games anymore. So my question is this. Well, do you honestly believe that Amy is making these decisions? Is she personally making these decisions? Because if she is, she needs to get out of that business, and she really needs to get somebody into that business that understands football at the NFL level. Because if that's the case, and I just recently bought some more PSLs at the new stadium. I'm a PSL holder, and I didn't invest thousands, but I invested tens of thousands of dollars. And I'm struggling with this lack of leadership. I'm not hearing anything from the owners. I'm not hearing anything from the front office. And now's the time we need people to step up. I get it. They made some bad decisions. They failed. It's okay. But to just radio silence, and oh, by the way, 2 hours ago, the young lady from the post office dropped off my Tennessee Titans gift, so I'll throw it up there in the closet with the rest of that crap garbage they send us and those AI-generated letters that they send out to us telling us, thank you for your patience, thank you for doing this. Anyway, guys, I'm out. I'm just frustrated, and it's just hard just watching this, especially after yesterday. But at least you go. Thanks for going and covering the team. Appreciate you guys. I'm out.
You don't got to thank me, Johnny. That's what I paid for. Like that's what it is. Listen. I appreciate the call. I'm sure you speak for a good many people. I cannot imagine what I would actually feel like if, for example, you or I were approached about season tickets in a hypothetical world where we were not covering the team on a day-to-day basis, where we were Titans fans or something like that, and going through this. It's such a perfect storm for them to be upselling on this new stadium while they are horrendous. And, to the point about it's her team. Yes, there is a collection of people that help her make decisions. She hires people to help her make decisions, as any business owner does. And I'm not saying that she's Woody Johnson of the Jets, but you can hire all the people that you want, and it's your thing at the end of the day. And then you make a decision based off Madden ratings because your 18-year-old son told you to, which is what that Woody Johnson report reads. If you read anything in The Athletic, that Diana Rossini, Zach Rosenblatt, and Mike Silver spent 6 months reporting on all the dysfunction with the Jets. Now, the Jets are a very, very extreme case. It's a 14-year playoff drought at this point. People are losing their minds. You have an owner who is walking into the locker room and telling Mike White with 10 broken ribs after he tries to lead that team to the playoffs, yeah, you should throw your helmet. You suck. That's a quote. So it's everywhere in football. At the end of the day, she makes the decisions. It's her franchise. Should she sell to somebody who makes better decisions? Why would she ever do that? These things make money hand over fist. And at the end of the day, it's the best line, and it is the most applicable line that I have ever heard in my life, Tony Kornheiser. The answer to all of your questions is money. Let's go to Joe.
What's going on, guys?
Hey, buddy.
Thanks for taking my call. Listen, I have the perfect solution to fix the Tennessee Titans. Okay.
Okay, please God.
Here's what we need to do. We need to see the direct snap ball to Tony Pollard every game. Just take Will Levis and Mason Rudolph out of the game and just direct snap the ball to the running backs for the entirety of the game. Okay. Also, no more punts. Okay. Any chance we can get special teams to not get off the field or to get off the field, we win more games. Okay. So doing those two things, we go to the playoffs because the AFC South sucks. Thanks for the call.
I appreciate the call, Joe. I'll take any solutions at this point because I keep asking people there, keep asking coaches, players, what's going on. Can I, in fact, hear from Brian Callahan at the post-game press conference? He's going to speak at 11 o'clock today. We'll carry it live. given what's going on. Can I hear from Brian Callahan after losing 38-30 to the Indianapolis Colts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm disappointed all the way around and how the final outcome. I just wish we had played better early in that game. We were in a good spot. We go down and miss the field goal, but a chance to go up. And then we have offensively have a critical spot where we get about a 60-yard gain to Calvin, and we get a hands to the face, and that one gets called back. And that's kind of where the momentum shifted. We turned the ball over, and then once turned the ball over late in the half, which made it even harder when we throw that pick in the 2-minute drill. So yeah, it's just the whole thing is disappointing because I thought we were going to play better than we did early. And the run game, they had a couple really big explosive ones get away from us, and made it challenging to have to come back into the game. So I wish we didn't have to come back, and we didn't have to show that kind of effort. I wish we could have won the game.
That's the worst run defense that the franchise has played since the Tennessee. What's happening there that you're getting back?
Yeah, it looks that's again super disappointing performance. Really, not at all what I think that we've shown over the course of the year. But didn't get off blocks, didn't win the line of scrimmage, and then didn't tackle in space. We had, and then the speed of Jonathan Taylor showed up, and we couldn't get him on the ground. And he had two extremely large runs, and the quarterback had the other. And sometimes that's all you need to have a day like that is two 70-yard runs, puts you in a pretty rare category to begin with. So not good enough. Got to be able to get the ball carrier on the ground. Got to be able to fit gaps better than we did. So a disappointing performance.
We'll take more of your phone calls on this coming up next. We'll also talk about the Vols loss to Ohio State, 615-737-1045. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. Welcome back to the show. I assume that most of you don't feel like dancing today. So Jackson just accused me of doing something that I don't know that I've ever been accused of before. Would you like to bring this to air?
I think you've gone full sports radio on us, buddy.
How do you mean?
The segment that you're teasing that you were teasing to me and Lucas right before we came back.
So I don't know anything about Seinfeld. I've never watched it. Have you?
Oh, yeah.
I've watched Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is basically Seinfeld, but Larry David instead of Jerry Seinfeld. But I've never actually watched Seinfeld. So Festivus is a concept that I'm not really familiar with, but I keep seeing it all over my timeline. And it's apparently something that's done around the holiday season where it starts with the airing of grievances.
A Festivus for the rest of us.
Is that not the most sports talk radio thing I've ever heard? So you're telling me that that's not an original thought, that sports talk radio people have been doing that for years, and I'm just late to the party because I don't pay attention to sports talk radio.
Thought the airing of grievances thing was just something that sports talk people did?
Buddy, what do you do for 3 hours a day?
Yeah, that was created by Jerry Stiller's character in Seinfeld.
Yes. So it's appropriate today. I'm looking at a screenshot of Jerry Stiller saying, I got a lot of problems with you people, and now you're going to hear about it, which I delight in. It's the most sports talk radio thing I've ever heard in my life. But then you told me that what else do people say in sports talk radio that I've never heard before?
Turn it to 104.5 and rip the knob off. You've never heard that?
Who the hell has knobs on their, like, there is no knob.
Buddy,
I love how you act like
a button.
Sometimes you act like you were born in 2010.
I mean, it feels like it when it comes to this stuff. But, yeah, I don't know anything about ripping the knob off. But
Lucas, does your car have a knob?
Because
mine does.
My knob controls the volume.
I have two.
It's such a funny word. Anyway, so this is going to be the airing of grievances, which is basically what this entire football season has become. The airing of grievances, though, it's probably different from Titans to Vols. Titans haven't been overwhelmingly competitive, save a few sparing instances this year. Vols made it to the college football playoff, and their results did not go the way that anybody wanted it to, certainly. But I don't know. There was something about that game that just felt like it was going to be overwhelming. Now, I would have said Ohio State by 10, not by 42-17, which is what the final margin ended up being. But that was pretty surprising. And that they were just one of many blowouts in this college football playoff is another. And we're going to touch on that here in just a second. But let's get to a few more Titans phone calls before we pivot. Caleb is next.
Hey, how's it going, by the way? First of all, an early Merry Christmas to you guys.
Yeah, to you and everybody else.
So, in terms of the Vols, I've always been optimistic. This whole season, I've been pretty much high on them, and I was thinking, at the start of the season, I kind of fed into the hype. I was thinking national championship. However, when it comes to our Titans, this has been probably the second worst season I think I've ever seen in terms of play. It may not be as bad as a record as I've seen, but it's almost like we're lost out there, to be honest.
No, I don't think there's a more appropriate way to describe it than they are lost. They don't seem to have overwhelming direction from coaching to players on down. Like it seems, we've talked about this, it's a rudderless ship right now. And the question that's going to be asked at the end of the season, or is being asked right now internally, is, are these people the right people to right the ship? And I don't know how they could honestly say, other than we don't want to pay two coaches and two general managers to go away, that the way that they're already paying one coach and one general manager to go away. Also, it would be a horrific reflection on the franchise and by extension the ownership itself that would justify what's happening here. But I appreciate the call, Caleb. Bo is up next.
Hey, yeah, big Titans fan. Listen, I'm not new to bad quarterbacks. I talked myself into Zach Mettenberger in year 3 of Jake Locker, so I get it. It's obvious Levis and Rudolph aren't the answer. So this is what I've heard. And I know some of these are way easier than others, but I don't know what y'all have heard. Y'all hear more than me. And so what I hear is the options of maybe the Minnesota Vikings, because they have Sam Darnold, maybe trading J.J. McCarthy. Cousins is free now. Of course, there's Warden Sanders in the draft. There might be something I haven't even heard about from ESPN or another source. I'd love to hear from y'all what you think. I know you've talked about quarterback a lot. What y'all think, like, really what the answer is and what you think we're heading to. So I'd love to hear from y'all. Thank y'all.
I think you're heading towards Derek Carr next year.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's twofold, right? You don't know if you've seen enough and a lot of people don't think they've seen enough. They've made that decision for themselves to trust in this leadership in the front office to lead the Titans forward in what is a very murky path forward. It's hard to draw up a plan. There's no slam dunk. Well, at least you got the number 1 or number 2 pick, right? I mean, the Titans have the number 4 pick right now.
They're still below the Jags.
Below the Jags, below the Patriots, who are at 2, and the Giants at 1. The Raiders won. They beat the Jags yesterday, so they currently have the number 6 pick in the draft.
Panthers won, too.
Panthers won and eliminated the Arizona Cardinals, so the Panthers moved down to the number 7 pick in the draft. But even if you do have a top 2 pick, there is not this Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels prospect to hinge a fan base's hopes on. Now, a fan base's hopes will get hinged on one of these guys. Like, Shedeur Sanders will be considered the savior for whatever team he gets drafted to. The fan base is going to get super excited about it. Same goes for Cam Ward. And whatever ex-quarterback prospect whose draft stock inevitably inflates over the course of the next few months, right? There's one guy in this that we're not talking about as much now that is going to be in that discussion. Mm-hmm. Like, most of us wouldn't have said Bo Nix or J.J. McCarthy or Michael Penix were going to be drafted as highly as they were, a year ago.
I truly believe they don't want anything to do with this quarterback draft class. I believe they want a stopgap veteran. I think your stopgap veteran options are Derek Carr and begging Kirk Cousins, dead legs Kirk Cousins at 36 years old off an Achilles injury to come here. Or, Ryan Tannehill's still local for the time being. I guess you could give him a call and see if he's feeling like a sicko that he would want to come back here at this point. But Derek Carr is the thing that makes the most sense. You know why? Because Callahan's coached him before. That honestly is the thing that I think by percentage chance, that to me feels like the most likely scenario that would at least, and I don't know what options Derek Carr is going to have beyond here that may be more viable, because obviously the player has to also want to come here beyond the organization wanting them. But I think that if you're going to go where if you're a coach coaching for your job, as this one is, and you're a front office that's trying to prove that it's not all what's Dawn say, bunk, that it's not all bunk, and that it's real, and that you spent $228 million for a reason around Will Levis, but you can still do this with a better quarterback, then Derek Carr is the thing that seems like it's looming largest out there in the offseason.
Which
we'll have plenty of time to talk about that.
Well, you understand that path because he is a veteran, potentially stabilizing factor that allows you to address tons of other parts of the roster.
I would totally get it.
But then the path forward remains murky because you would still need a long-term solution at quarterback.
And if Derek Carr wins 7 or 8 games, that would be an improvement, but it obviously would prevent you from drafting a quote-unquote franchise-changing quarterback. This is the reason why I think it's a real struggle to figure out where the hell they go from here beyond just these next 2 games, because there is no clear path forward for them to figure out, hey, can we do this or not? All right, Brian Callahan is going to give a press conference. You're going to hear from him coming up next.
It is 10:58. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Titans took an early 7-0 lead before giving up 38 points unanswered to the Colts on Sunday, and the comeback effort fell short in a 38-30 loss in Indianapolis. The Titans gave up 335 rush yards as they fall to 3-12. Mason Rudolph got the start, going 23 of 34 for 252 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Brian Callahan was asked post-game about the quarterback situation moving forward.
We'll see. This is a week-to-week thing right now, and we'll see where that lands. I'm not going to make any determination on it right now.
Callahan will meet with the media again coming up in a few minutes. You can hear it live right here on The Zone. The first round of the 12-team college football playoff is in the books, and Tennessee's season is over after a rout at Ohio State. 42-17 the final. The Buckeyes jumped out to a 21-0 lead in the first quarter and never looked back. Tennessee finishes the year 10-3. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
All right. Titans lost yesterday. Brian Callahan's going to speak to the media here in a few moments from now. We'll carry that press conference live for you. Of course, the things that are worth hearing about are what I guess he saw on film after the fact en route to giving up 335 rushing yards, 38 unanswered points to the Indianapolis Colts, who are not a good football team, mind you. AFC South is pretty fragile, is the way that I would state it. Especially, I felt so bad for Tank Dell.
Yeah, that was brutal.
That's awful.
Bad knee injury. As he, to his credit, caught the touchdown, hung on to it, and the Texans lose in Arrowhead.
But things, you understand the state of things at 3-12, and the conversations that are going to be had at year's end. Whether you want to clear house now, whether you want to wait till the end of the season. I certainly wouldn't advocate to fire anybody in season. That doesn't make any sense at all. I'll wait until the end of the season, though. 2 more games left before I tell you what I think. I think there's going to be a difference between what they do and what I think they should do. But I have thoughts on both of those things. So we'll see how the thing continues to roll. I was pretty disappointed with the post-game press conference yesterday, specific to Brian Callahan, for this reason. He gave his opening statement about why they lost. He did say that he was proud of the way that the team fought, and to their credit, they did come back after being down 38-7. They did score, continue to score. They had three straight touchdown drives, but the game was out of hand. They put themselves in a hole, and there was no digging themselves. They're not a good enough football team to dig themselves out of a 38-7 hole. We know this. And the final score ends up being 38-30, even though it really was never that close. I had a Colts employee. Me and Terry McCormick are waiting in the media line for food yesterday at halftime. And a Colts employee, Terry and I were going back and forth on what the hell it was that we just watched. And this was before the 70-yard touchdown to start the third quarter. Colts employee turns around to us and says, "Man, I thought we were bad. Can we play the Colts every week? Or play the Titans every week?" And that's just where things are, because the Colts are not a good football team, and that's the thing that makes you the most frustrated. Is they're not just losing to the Detroits and the Buffaloes of the world. They're losing to the Jags and the Colts, who are pretty fraudulent, or maybe the Jags are what they are, but still. There was 30 points scored. That was something that I spent a good deal of time harping on. Careful what you ask for this offseason, but it's tough to.
Well, finish your thought. You said you took issue with the press conference.
I took issue with the press conference because he got up there and said, "Thank you because I would have wondered." He got up there and I asked him, "Well, how do you justify it?" That was the first question that I asked. And he said, "In terms of what?"
I'm also confused by the question.
Justify the way that the team loses, justify 3-12, justify 335 rushing yards. So maybe that I should have been more specific, because
justify. What are you looking for, and how do you
why
justify
this football
it?
Team is so bad? What can you tell us about the things that you're seeing that indicates why this football team is 3-12, and frankly, why you're the person to fix it?
I guess, yeah. Justify is like, what makes this okay? right? That's essentially what you're asking. And I don't know what.
Proud of the way that the team fought is not something that people are interested in hearing, even if it's true.
But he addressed all the things that went wrong in the game and the run fits. And so
and
I just don't know.
The explanation of how they got there is not a justification. The justification is why are you the question that fans, I think, are asking and that we were trying to get to yesterday was, how do you justify this, the state that this thing is in? The fact that you just gave up more rushing yards in an NFL game than anybody's given up all season. And it is the worst rushing defense performance of the season, but you got two more that kind of look just like this.
Well, it's pretty much the question that he got a couple weeks ago or maybe 1 week ago on, how do you assure fans that the processes that are in place are the right ones moving forward, right? That was along the lines of that question. And we played the audio. He went on a long answer about the process, what's happening in the building, how much he believes in the culture they're putting in place.
Okay, and then
so beyond but beyond just a repeat of that, I don't know. I'm just confused on what you were looking for there and what he could have said.
Answers at all. Somebody has to answer these questions beyond we know what we're doing works. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And then the follow-up was about the rushing defense, and I don't understand how they, and maybe that they are self-reflective in ways that we're obviously not privy to, and nor does he have to get up there and say, well, have you seen my roster? It sucks. I don't expect him to do that. But we are at a point where these questions have to be more seriously considered, other than there's a difference between explaining and justifying. Explaining is what he did in response to those things yesterday. Yes, this is how we got there. This is why the game turned the way that it did. This is how we ended up losing another game, our 12th game of the season. That is an explanation, and I understand that. But I'm talking about justification for why this thing is so bad. Why this thing craters.
They gave up 335 rush yards. Where would there is no, I don't understand. I just don't understand what you're looking for. I'm confused on what he could
reasons why he's the person to fix it.
Yeah, which he did that. He went on a 3-minute answer about that a week ago.
And then they lost again.
Sure, but we just want to run that back?
Yes.
Okay.
Lucas, yes. What else are you... What else would the post-game press conference look like other than, can you please explain and justify why this football team is so chaotic and disastrous on a regular basis? That question is going to continue to be asked because I don't know that they win another game. They could lose to the Jags again. They're totally capable of. They've already done it.
Yeah, sure.
They could lose to the Texans after beating the Texans earlier this year. And yes, those same questions will be asked if they have another chaos moment, the way that they seem to have one from one phase of the game in every single game. Why? And it will be asked at the end of the year of him in some form or fashion, a question that Bryce R. just said in the comment section, why do you deserve a second year as the coach of this team? It's all leading up to that.
Yeah, those are the answers that'll be asked after the season. Yeah,
because I can't do that in week 16 while we're sitting there with 2 more games to go, because of course the answer is, well, we're going to get to the end of the season, and obviously that's a ridiculous question to ask in week 16. So somebody say something that's not just explaining, yeah, we gave up 335 rushing yards, and that's a great way to lose a game. Okay. What are you doing to fix it? How are you justifying the process of what it is that you are doing to fix this? We asked the players in the locker room last night whether they felt prepared for these games, and the answer was yes. So if the preparation is there, or if they feel adequately prepared, then what the hell is going wrong that this team just craters? Brian Callahan's press conference next.
So I'll have more updates as the week goes on. I don't have as many today, but we got a handful of guys pretty banged up. So we'll see how the week goes. Go ahead.
Kelly, have you thought about making another switch at quarterback after, their stats are so similar. Do you need to see more out of Levis now?
No, I haven't made any decisions on that. I thought Mason, outside of the one interception at the end of the half, that was kind of his one poor decision of the game. That was one he'd like to have back. I thought he did a lot of other really pretty positive things in that game. You know, he was efficient and he found ways to complete the ball and he got the ball out of his hand and those things were good. So it was a relatively good performance by Mason. You know, the other interception bounces off Tony's hands. You can't have it. I mean, we can't have those. Tony's got to come down with the ball. And then the last one was just there's 3 seconds left, last play of the game, seeing if he can get something. So thought he had a good performance, but ultimately, you know, we needed a little bit more. Can't have the turnover in a critical spot. So that's sort of been our Achilles heel most of the season is turnovers in big spots that swing momentums in games for us. So that part was disappointing, but I haven't made any decision on that.
Consider, I guess, if you are going to make a decision or not going to make them, what's kind of going through your mind on trying to decide where to go from here there?
You know, I just think that still the idea is to put ourselves in the best chance to win, and who gives us the best chance to do that. And again, I understand the stats are sometimes similar. The stats don't always paint the full picture either direction to one guy or the other at this point. So my goal is to try to put the best chance to win on the field for us, and we'll see what that looks like. But that's always going to be my focus, and my responsibility is to do that. So that's ultimately what I'm looking for and what the team is looking for.
How do you, I guess, explain or kind of make sense of the run defense, like big discrepancy over the last several weeks? There's been 2 where it's just been really pretty good. Is that hard to figure?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, there's things that are revealing and telling in certain games. I mean, clearly the 2 games where the quarterback run game is a huge part of it, changes how you play against those schemes. We've not done a great job handling those styles of offenses right now. You know, it puts a different mentality in place when you're playing a traditional run game. You know, you can attack and you can come downhill and you can do the things that we do pretty well. When the quarterback's involved in the run game, it changes a little bit of, your ends have to play the quarterback. You have to be assignment driven. You have to have hats where they're supposed to be in terms of the RPO game and the quarterback. And so you have to be assigned correctly. It's a little bit less of go disrupt than it is where you got to be a little more on top of the details. And then again, when you start playing in some single high defenses, what happened to us in the game on both the long runs was, you're in a single high defense and you have to fit it right. Otherwise, it ends up being it can be a big explosive play because you got so many people by the box. And so that's what happened on the one run to Jonathan Taylor is we're in a single high and we misfit the run and the run gets to the second level. We don't make the tackle. And he gets out for 70, and that's really, it was three big runs that happened in that situation that made that day look as bad as it did. We still fought. I mean, they ran the ball a ton of times, but the big ones is where we can't have. We got at least, again, even at the end of the day, get them on the ground for a 20-yard gain. Just don't give up a 70-yard touchdown, which again we didn't do a good enough job there. But we misfit some runs that led to some big runs, and that was just kind of the story of the game.
How the way guys react to it. Well, it's just fits. We got to fit better. Well, run stopping's actually pretty easy. Well, it's all 11 guys.
You don't have to yell. You can ask a question.
Thanks. Well, it's all 11 guys. It wasn't me. Well, it was better when I was on the field. It seemed like a lot of guys really had an easy time coming to terms with it. How do you feel about that?
I didn't see any of that, Paul. To be honest, I didn't watch it. I didn't see any of the player interviews or anything like that. But I don't sense that from our players. What they say after games, and sometimes there's emotion involved in it. Don't feel like that is indicative of what I experience when I interact with them. Certainly, I'm as embarrassed as anybody that was what we put on the field, and I think they are too. That it's not obviously anywhere close to acceptable performance in the run game. I don't really know how they personally felt about every part of it, but collectively, we had to play better in a run game than we did, and we didn't do enough things right, and that's how you get run for the amount of yards we got run on. So, again, I can't comment to what they said after the game, but I just know that I would hope that they feel just as embarrassed as I do that that's a performance that we can't put out there.
One of the Colts players said something after the game along the lines of he heard one of your players say, well, this feels like a day Taylor's going to go for 300. Did you sense that kind of resignation from the defenders, that they just kind of thought that was going to happen?
No, I didn't. I think, I can't comment to what they said, but we knew it was going to be a game where they're going to hand the ball off a bunch. The quarterback, that's what they've done the last handful of games too. It's sort of been their formula for success is they run the ball a lot. The quarterback doesn't throw it a lot, and they're going to try to hand it to him as many times as possible. He's playing really well. Both in the quarterback's playing well in the run game, and Jonathan Taylor's been running the ball pretty fantastically over the last handful of games. So, the expectation was that they were going to run the football a lot, and it wasn't anything that we didn't expect. We just didn't do a good enough job defending it.
Gray and Williams, maybe being inexperienced late round rookies, were they having issues getting in the right spots and all?
They did some good things. They flashed some of their talent that they have, but you could see that they had some rookie moments in there as well. Cedric was productive on the ball. I thought he showed some things that was good to see, but you saw their inexperience against that style of run game show up a little bit. And again, everybody on defense has to be better against the run game, and they're certainly a part of that process. And you do have to have 11 guys doing the right thing to stop the run, and guys taking care of their gaps and being where they're supposed to be. And we didn't have enough of that during the game.
As said that you didn't adjust, and they kind of referred the question back to you as to why adjustments weren't made. Were you guys coaching for change in the way you were defending the run? And how did players respond?
Yeah, I thought they, we tried a bunch of different things. We were playing some man coverage against some of that RPO stuff, which you have to do against quarterback run game. We pressured it quite a bit. We played some middle field open. We sort of rolled through a bunch of different things to try to slow some of it down, and some of it worked pretty good. And again, it's the explosive runs that got out that made it look way worse. But yeah, I thought Denard did a good job trying to mix it up and change the look. So again, I can't speak to that necessarily if that's what they felt like. My door's open if they want to come express those things.
A month ago, you guys beat Houston, and on this day, everybody kind of was saying, feels like we've maybe turned a corner. We're looking for more consistency. Since then, bad rush defense and turnovers in Washington, can't score on offense against Jacksonville, turnover problem in Cincinnati. Yeah. Yesterday's the worst rush defense ever. Why has there been no consistency, and how do you clog the varying different things that have haunted you in the last month?
Yeah, that's what that's what we work every day to try to do is find a way to keep getting things better, fix mistakes. They've all come in different ways and shapes and forms. It's not always the same thing. It's something different comes up. We end up throwing interceptions in bad spots. We've struggled to defend some of the quarterback run game in the last couple of weeks. It's been an up and down ride, and I think that's what we're trying to do our best to find more consistency. And that's when I talk about down to down consistency. It's drive to drive. It's game to game. We're just too up and down. We back up good performances on one side of the ball with a poor one on the other. We have a good performance here in one game and then a poor performance the next one. And so we're trying to find ways to continue our build consistency. And that's been our biggest challenge this year is playing at the level and the spot that you need to play every single play, every single game over the course of 17 games. And it's never going to be perfect. You're never going to get everything exactly the way that you want it. But we certainly have to do a better job than we've done. And it's been hard to fix every problem every week. And it's when one shows up when you thought you kind of addressed it. It's been a challenge, and we're continuing to work on it. We got 2 more weeks to try to keep coaching it.
Much of a concern, I guess, Brian, for you and the coaching staff. I mean, you guys have talked about the future and the promise and so forth, but only 2 more opportunities to show bottom line results. I guess are you concerned about the lack of opportunities left to show bottom line results?
I mean, I wish we had a whole lot more to show for what we've done this year. It's when you look back and the amount of work that we put in since we got here and the amount of effort that's gone into it, to have this particular moment be where we are is not at all what I would have expected to have it be as challenging as it's been. But it's certainly been challenging, and we've not done a good enough job of producing the way you have to produce on Sundays. Even though I saw a lot of things that I believe in we do the right way, but we haven't won enough football games, and it's a bottom line business, and we got to show progress, and we haven't shown enough. Would like to see more, and we got 2 more opportunities to do it. And as they say, don't count the opportunities. You got to make the opportunities count, and we got to do that for the last 2 weeks.
How do teams build consistency when it's taking a while to get it going? And does it take this long in the past, or is this kind of the longest you've seen to get it going?
No, I mean, it's, there's a lot of things that go into it, but yeah, I mean, I've been a part of, a couple different year one processes, and they look, pretty similar. Year one in Oakland, and I had a year one in Cincinnati, and you're fighting through all the same things you got to fight through, and you got to keep improving. Keep improving the coaching. You got to keep improving your roster. You got to keep building the whole process. And I think that there's a lot of things we've done well. Enough of them don't show up outwardly, and that's kind of been the frustration. Is the performance on Sundays hasn't matched what the preparation looks like, what the energy looks like. The disappointing thing is I thought we had one of our best Friday practices in terms of energy, execution, like on top of all the things you got to be on top of. And then it doesn't translate, to start the game, or at least that first half, it gets away from us. So I think the biggest issue we have right now, though, is that, we lead the league in turnovers. I mean, it's that part's, you're going to lose a whole lot of games turning the ball over at the rate we've turned it over. I think what do we have, 31 turnovers or something like that? I mean, that's insanity. So, it's going to make it really hard. And that's where the last 2 games have gotten away from us. We've turned the ball over twice in 2 straight games in the waning minutes of the half, and it turns into, we could have gone in at 17-7 in the halftime, and it looks a little different, and all of a sudden it's 24, and then they get the ball back, and it's, 31. And that's how you lose games in this league. And if you turn the ball over and put yourself in bad spots and they capitalize on it, it makes it really difficult. So I would say the biggest issue we have right now is the turnover problem, and that's you want to build consistency and you want to do things better, and you got to make sure you take care of the football.
Among the changes that you've made that have worked, it looks like the last couple of weeks, you've embraced running the football down to the goal line, and I think your red zone numbers have gotten a lot better in the process.
Yeah, I think we're 7 for 7 in the last 2 weeks, which is really positive. We've run the ball a bunch. We've used our goal line package. It's worked out well for us. I think that part's been good. We've sort of shifted and pivoted and started doing more of that, and it's paid dividends for us. Yeah, I'm that part I am pleased about. I'm pleased about how we played on third down too over the last handful of weeks. I think we're hovering around 50% on third down, which is pretty dang good. So there is things that we're doing well, but again, not enough of it's contributing to winning football games yet.
Going back to the quarterback situation, if you stick with Mason and Will doesn't see any more action this year, are you concerned psyche-wise for him that his last performance would be his worst of the year?
No, I'm not. I think those are that's part of playing NFL quarterback. There's a lot of stuff that's hard about playing the position, and that's how things go. And you got to find a way to bounce back and rebound, and that's the expectation.
Was there any one play, I guess, that led to the switch of NPF and Ojukwu yesterday?
It was the sack on the third down that we had a chance. As Mason was working back, and it just felt like it needed a change in that moment. He had a couple things that weren't great that we just felt like it was make a change and see what else we can do with the other guy.
If you're Amy watching this,
yeah.
What would you be thinking if you're owner of a football team watching first-year coach?
The best part about that is that's not my job. My job is to coach the football team and get ready to go play Jacksonville. That's the only thing that I focus on, and anything other than that is out of my control. And I do the best I can every day I walk in here. And it's not for me to make any conjecture on and make any statements on. I'm just trying to coach the football team as best I possibly can and try to go get a win against Jacksonville.
Do you expect you're going to have to make a case to her when this is over?
I have no idea. We talk regularly, and we have conversations about all the things that go on. So don't know.
Was Folk close? Did Narveson just mishit that ball? And how much of a, I guess, deflating moment was that when you could have gone up 10-0?
Yeah, that was a big moment. Those two really big moments in the game that I felt like were kind of momentum stealers. The one was the missing the field goal on that third drive to go up 10-0, and the other one was the hands to the face on the explosive ball to Ridley. Those were two sort of momentum changing plays that I thought had effect on the game, and making that field goal would have been huge. So that wasn't great. I would love to see us knock that one through, and we'll see where Folk's at. Again, don't want to make any proclamations about his availability, but he should be improved from last week.
Heard from your coach for a period of time there, and there's a variety of different things that he addressed. I understand why he's talking about some of the positive things that they're doing. I don't disagree with him at all that the turnover rate is insanity. In his own words,
not committing to a starting quarterback Sunday.
No, but that to me means done with Levis. I could be wrong, but all the messaging on that means to me done with Will. The question about, are you concerned about Will's psyche? Given that if you have to go back to him, the last performance that he had was his worst one of the year, and him saying no, in not so many, in more words than that, but I just truly, when you sit him down, you're done with him. And you can say week to week, but the way that he justified, the audience didn't hear it, the stream got to hear it because we did carry the whole press conference on the YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch streams while we were still in commercial break. He did start off basically saying that Mason Rudolph was fine yesterday, and that there was a bunch of other things that went wrong in that game, that there was one interception. He threw 3 interceptions. One was explicitly on him. The other one went off Tony Pollard's hands. Tip drill, the third one obviously came with 3 seconds left in the game.
Yeah, he did not say Mason Rudolph was fine yesterday. Those are not his words.
Well, he justified it.
He said, no decision on starting quarterback moving forward. Relatively good performance by Rudolph, just needed more.
Okay.
That's what he said.
Relatively good performance, just needed more is fine.
What he didn't say is, Mason Rudolph was fine yesterday. Fine means good enough. He did not say Mason Rudolph was fine yesterday.
You can parse that if you want to. That, to me, means that Mason Rudolph is good enough to play another game in Jacksonville next week. Yes?
Yeah, I expect Mason Rudolph to start next week.
Well, I'm glad that we could nitpick that specifically. His thing, and he said a lot of different things this year to some effect about, well, they're coaching the best that they can. And, I'll take him at his word on that. But when the results are the results, and he's being asked questions about, do you expect to have to make a case to Amy Adams Strunk at the end of the year to keep your job? And the answer is, I don't know. The case is week by week. Each week in the NFL, whether it be training camp, preseason games, regular season games, postseason, if you're lucky enough to make it there, and this team obviously will not, that is your week by week case that you're making to the ownership, to the people that decide your job status. And to hear the coach say, well, we're doing the best coaching job that we can right now. I've heard Gerard Mayo say some things similar to that, and Giardi crush him for saying things similar to that. Giardi, among other people, and Boston's obviously a different sports media market, but I think it's okay to hold these people to similar standards, even if the fan base, reacts differently to holding people accountable or different ways that they hold people accountable. If you're doing the best job that you can, that's diffusing blame from you and saying that it's an execution problem and that the players are the bulk of the issue, not the coaching staff. Vrabel did this too. Vrabel did this after they lost to the Cincinnati Bengals in 2020 where, and he said it much more bluntly than Brian Callahan is alluding to. But after the game that they ended up cutting Vic Beasley and Jonathan Joseph for, and it was one of the last games I think that Clowney ended up playing, they were talking about the defense. It was the historically worst third down defense in football. And he said, well, we know it's not the scheme, or we know it's not the coaches, something to that effect. And he got crushed for that. because the results were what the results were, and people don't accept anything like that, especially when now that was a more blatant example of pointing fingers. But you got players pointing fingers at the coaching staff last night in not so many words. Arden Key is saying that they need prayers, that they're asking for prayers at this point in time. And he may genuinely feel that way. I feel terrible for the players in the locker room going through the things that they have gone through. I feel terrible that the coaching staff is having this bad of a time with it. Like, on a personal level, that sucks. But on a professional level, man, collectively, it's really, really tough to justify the things that they are doing right when the results are 3-12.
Yeah, there's nothing that you can dress up here.
Well, you said something interesting during the break that I think is worth saying on the air.
What?
About, I feel like the coach, at least the coach who is speaking to us the most often, which is the head coach, does not have a good pulse of what this football team is.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, and my response was, when you're 3-12, I think you can make any assumption, any negative assumption about the team. The coach doesn't have a pulse on the locker room. Players aren't playing hard. There's no leadership. I don't know, X, whatever people throw at, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They've quit, all the things you hear. And the door is going to be open on all of it because they're 3-12, right? And we're going to talk about it later today. What is the biggest issue that they have? Those are easy things to say when they're 3-12. And there's nothing to stand on, right? There's nothing tangible to say, no, here's proof why they are headed in the right direction and why Callahan is the guy. The thing that I stand on is I think this franchise desperately needs stability moving forward. The roster is not in a good place. It's going to take more than one offseason when you layer in all the needs that are now on this roster, quarterback on top of them. And I don't know how layering in head coach and general manager onto the needs improves the outlook moving forward. So that's the only thing that I have to stand on. I don't agree that Brian Callahan should be let go after his first year. I don't. He could lose to Jacksonville, and they can lose to Houston. I don't agree that Rand Carthon should be fired right now. A lot of people are there. I'm not. But the only thing I have to stand on is the need for stability. And to just get this roster into even a league average place. That's where I'm at. But again, it's the only thing that I have is you don't want to be that dysfunctional, turnover-laden franchise. That's what I have to stand on.
Sure.
I don't have results to stand on.
No, I get that perspective. And it's a completely fair point by you. When they are as bad as they are, you can allege anything and people will get behind it. Yeah. I mean, within reason. Like, we're not talking about, there are obviously limits.
The only thing I can feel confident in saying is I don't think they've quit on the season. I don't think they stopped playing. And I think there's been multiple games, as bad as it's been at times, where the proof has been in the pudding on that. But otherwise, yeah.
Second time you've used that phrase.
Is it really? Yeah. That's so weird. I don't know if I've ever said that in my life.
And I still don't understand why proof is in the pudding to begin with, but, that's neither here nor there.
Maybe we do some research on that. But, yeah, otherwise, yeah, you're right. There's anything you can allege. And at 3-12, it's hard to come up with the proof.
You're just throwing darts at people who are basically a human dartboard at this point in time. I'm cognizant of that. But the perspective that I have, Lucas, that, and you can tell me right, wrong, or indifferent, is that I'm doing basically every press conference. Obviously, there are some things that I can't make because of the radio show. But every post-game press conference, certainly, and then I do every post-game locker room. And that is the most honest version of anything that we get, the post-game locker room, because that's whether win or lose, it's an emotionally charged atmosphere. You've been in a post-game locker room, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I don't know how many people have. Like, that's a very unique thing, whether it's basketball, football, otherwise, win or lose, it's an emotionally charged environment. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, sure.
So you're probably going to get more raw responses closer to the truth than you would in any other setting. And I say that of coaches' press conferences. I say that of players' media availability in the immediate aftermath of whatever took place on the field. And it has been very, very emotionally charged for 3 years now, even though the players are different. And that's the other thing that I come back to. This is not, there is indisputably, what's the word? John Robinson shrapnel that they're still dealing with. like fallout that they're still dealing with John Robinson, indisputably. But they spent, again, $250 million on talent. And the football team is worse. That, to me, is tough to justify on the personnel acquisition part. It's tough to me to justify on the player part. It's also tough, very difficult for me to justify on the coaching side of things, even if I understand that their biggest personnel issue is the most important position. Mike Tomlin found ways to win games with Mason Rudolph. That is a stable organization.
Yep.
That is an organization that drafts well. That's an organization that is smart, I think, with how they manage. And it's not like they haven't made their mistakes and they haven't had some ebbs and flows. But, I mean, just talking to Ramon Foster, who played for a Pittsburgh Steelers organization for 11 years that's never had a losing season and continues to not, and is one of the most competitive teams on a regular basis. I've seen them do it with Kenny Pickett and an offensive coordinator that got fired in the middle of that season. Like, I've seen, and I know that's one of the golden standards, right? But that's what you're aspiring to be. And the question is, to me, it's not even about who coached here before, because a lot of people want to make it about Vrabel, and I honestly think that's a non-issue. It's about, are you closer to achieving your goal? And they are infinitely worse.
I remember when, before the season, Robert Mays of The Athletic, who did a great long sit-down interview with Brian Callahan, and he was doing his season preview on the Titans, and I can't remember how many wins he projected, if any, or if he did that with the Titans going in, but he was extremely low on the Titans, Robert Mays of The Athletic, because he said, when does this ever work? When does a roster in this poor of a state going out and spending a ton of money on a bunch of players that are at the top of their market in free agency, at or near the top, come in and cobble together a roster like that? When does this work? And he couldn't think of any examples. And that's why he was down on the Titans. And he has proven to be right. So, yes, they spent a ton of money. When you look through the guys that were at the top of that list in terms of money spent, L'Jarius Sneed, non-factor this year, hurt pretty much the entire season. Calvin Ridley, extremely slow start. And, has, popped a little bit production-wise. Quarterback issues have held him back. But
he's paid to be a game changer.
Yeah, he's not been the game changer. No, absolutely. Drops have been absolutely a concern. Those have leveled off, but early in the year they were. Lloyd Cushenberry, lost for the season, obviously, with the Achilles. Chido Awuzie missed most of the season. And
he's been
now
back
he's
for a couple of weeks now, but still, I mean, I would almost be willing to say non-factor just because it's been so little football.
So, for the most part, you have had to rely on the roster that was in place, not the players that you brought in, for the most part. Mm-hmm. And this tweet...
And they're playing a ton of rookies.
Yeah, they are playing a ton of rookies. And the tape farm, and I think the conversation boils down to this for a lot of people, the tape farm on the F&M Bank chat, I'm having to scroll up to find it, because he says, but you're counting on the people who got this roster to where it is now to get it to where it needs to be. That doesn't make any sense. And that's where I think the conversation boils down to. Who is still more responsible for this roster being in the state that it's in? I see this tweet from Teresa before the game yesterday saying, Titans fans, this franchise went from 2016 through 2019, signing only 5 draft picks to second deals. Whiffed on first rounders in 2020, 21, and 22. Replacing the talent in the roster quickly isn't easy. I think that is ultimately where it boils down to for a lot of people in assigning responsibility. Who is more responsible for this roster being in the state that it is in? And there are criticisms, obviously, on both sides. I don't think Ran Carthon has poorly drafted on aggregate. I also don't think Ran Carthon has brought in any cornerstone, game-changing star players for the franchise.
How many superstars does this team have?
Right.
Is my biggest criticism.
Sure,
right
yeah.
now.
And that nothing earns the fan base's
argument is
trust.
For one, and he's
Jeff,
somewhere between the 4th and 5th best defensive tackle in football.
And nothing will earn a fan base's trust more for a GM than like J-Rob, Early, Byard, Henry, AJ, Jeff, fan base. In J-Rob we trust, right?
Oh, sure.
Until everything just cratered.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I acknowledge that has not happened yet. Ran Carthon has drafted good players. He has drafted J.C. Latham, Jarvis Brownlee, great value in the 4th round. Tavondre Sweat has been pretty good in this second half of the season, especially.
The best talking point on the personnel side of things on the football team is a 5th-year undrafted rookie free agent in Nick Westbrook-Akina.
Sure. Yeah.
And that player was here. Listen, I don't think they're going anywhere. Carthon or Callahan. And, I said that last year about Vrabel, and then we got to week 18, and the buzz all over the place in the stadium before that Jags game kicked off, win or lose, he was getting fired. The narrative very much changed, and I don't think that's an accident. I think that's reflective of how the owner's attitude changed. So something could change in 2 weeks. I think they're both back. I think I'm more with you than not. I know my tone has been bad about this because they have been so incapable of fixing this or even maintaining a level of play that was deemed unacceptable last year, because that's the thing that I'm hitting them the most with, or I'm hitting the ownership group the most with, is last year was unacceptable. This year it's 3-12. And that's not to make the case for not. Again, I think it got stale. It was okay to make a change. And the person responsible at the top of this, Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan and everybody that works under them, they may be good at their jobs and just working for a dysfunctional organization. There are plenty of dysfunctional organizations in the NFL. There are some owners that don't care about their product. There are some owners that care too much and they meddle. And ultimately, I think that the organization is a reflection of the people that own it. So I put far, far, far more blame on the people at the very top than I do on either of the two individuals that are going to be most talked about as to whether they should keep their jobs or not. But I'm fascinated to see where they go from here, because the week by week case that they have been making has been catastrophic. And I don't know that doesn't get to her. Take your phone calls. Coming up next, 615-737-1045 is the number. Also, college football playoff expansion. It's on the horizon even after the first round that we just saw. Is that a problem? I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. All right, let's talk college football playoff because obviously that was the highlight of the weekend, unless you're a Vols fan. I understand. Maybe not the way that I should phrase that.
I don't know. Pretty underwhelming across the board.
Okay, but what'd you expect? Because Vegas got it loud wrong, right? Everybody was basically within a touchdown except for Clemson and Texas.
And ironically, that was, at times, that was arguably the most competitive game.
I would agree with that because Cade Klubnik played good football. It's just that they could not stop Texas's rushing attack at any point through that. By point differential or by point margin, Indiana Notre Dame was the most competitive. It was the team that lost by the fewest points, but we understand that Indiana did not belong on the same field as Notre Dame.
Recovered an onside kick, and then got another touchdown out of it, and suddenly you look up and that's a 10-point game. I said, what?
Yeah.
But Clemson made it a 7-point deficit.
Which is how, by the way, I felt about that Titans game yesterday.
Yeah, you just look up and it's a one-score game. Yeah, that was...
People got very upset with me because I called that second Tajay touchdown at garbage time. And I was like, yeah, whatever. It's still not. Even if it is a one-score game, it's not a one-score game.
Clemson cut the Texas lead to 7 with less than 12 minutes to go. And you thought, okay, all right, Clemson, who trailed 31-10 early in the third quarter, starting to mount a comeback. And then Jaden Blue went 77 yards, touchdown, 38-24, and you knew it was over at that point. But, yeah, none of these games going down to the wire, which was disappointing.
So it is disappointing, but it's kind of, I don't know, at the onset of this thing, when they made the 12-team college football playoff, my position was, all right, well, you still get through the first round. It's probably going to end up being chalk, right? Like the better teams are going to win, and you'll see that. How much they win by is going to be a different matter, but we're largely going to get the same principles involved as we get through. We're now through, we'll have quarterfinals, then semifinals, then we'll have the national championship. And I'd largely expect that to hold true because college football is not college basketball, and more often than not, the better team, certainly in college football, even in a year where there is more parity than there's ever been, you still have Ohio State capable of turning it on at any given point and splattering a Tennessee team that we know to be quality. A 10-win team in the SEC is always going to make the playoff.
The most talented teams in the country will be competing for the national championship in a couple weeks. Tennessee is not one of the most talented teams in the country, and that showed on Saturday.
So Kirk Herbstreit, who for me, his you want to talk about tone issues? Herbie's had a bit of a tone issue around the college football.
Herbie's
playoff.
over it. Herbie's done. He's
a little bit. Yeah.
He's over the discourse. I can tell.
You think he was? Well, is it? Yeah, the discourse is probably what's gotten to him because God knows there's been plenty of it. This is Kirk Herbstreit. Is this courtesy of SportsCenter?
Yeah, I believe this is on just Herbie on ESPN with Linda Cohn.
Which is SportsCenter after the game because he's still wearing his headset and his cold weather gear after calling that Tennessee-Ohio State game.
That I hope next year the committee won't get caught up in what the social media and a lot of people who are fringe fans get caught up in, which is wins. They had 11 wins. They must be good. Who did they beat? I think is much more important than how many wins you have. That's old school way of approaching it. Has Indiana having 11 wins and beating nobody. That doesn't mean they're one of the 12 best teams. Remember, I know Linda, I'm not taking this out on you, but there's a big difference between deserving and best.
Yeah.
What this is all about is giving us the best 12 teams. Now, it's subjective. How you want to figure out the best 12 is up to you, but that's what I want to see. I don't want to hear about wins. How many wins? Winning's obviously important, but just because you have 11 wins doesn't mean you're better than a team that maybe had a tougher road that had 9 wins. So I think we get too caught up in how many wins you have. It's really more about who are the best 12 teams, and we need to get the best 12 teams in this tournament every year.
Okay. Easier said than done. Strong disagree. An 11-win Big Ten team is always going to be in the college football playoff. A 10-win SEC team is probably going to be in a 12-team college football playoff. You know who else agrees with Kirk Herbstreit? Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, Kiffin was tweeting through it all weekend. My goodness.
Lane Kiffin responded, and I guess this would have been, who was the first game on Saturday?
The first game was SMU Penn State, which was the biggest splattering of all.
Awful. And so I don't necessarily disagree with Lane's thinking at the time, but he tweets, "Way to keep us on the edge of our seats, committee. Riveting." Now, of course, Lane Kiffin is welcome to beat Kentucky, and Alabama is welcome to do better against Oklahoma than what did they have, 6 points in that game?
3.
and all the different arguments that could be made on behalf of SEC teams that belonged in this playoff could also very easily be made against the SEC teams that had opportunities and squandered them. Joe Klatt, I mean, this is probably a pretty good oh no, so I hate to spoil it before tomorrow. But Joe Klatt quote tweeted Lane Kiffin and said, if your team played half as well as you tweet, you would likely be in. I kind of agree with that. Like these SEC teams, and I get that the SEC is top to bottom the best conference in the country. But until they change the rules to where the SEC gets multiple auto bids, and maybe Greg Sankey can wave his magic wand and, push his level of influence as far as it can be pushed and make a more compelling path or make a more compelling argument for when this thing expands, because it will expand. We all fully expect it to be 14 by the time we do this thing again, right?
Probably.
It's going to expand. Make the case for more. It's never going to be less, though. Like, we're never going back. We're never going to roll it back. So, and there's only so many teams that are going to have the resumes that as many teams as were at least in the conversation had, whether it be in the Big Ten or the SEC. I understand what Kirk Herbstreit is saying. I don't begrudge him it, but I think it's pretty nonsensical to say of an 11-win Big Ten team and a 10-win SEC team that those teams should not have had a compelling enough case to be in the 12-team college football playoff. That is where I most disagree with Herbstreit.
I think the argument that Herbie is making boils down to Indiana and SMU. I think those are the two teams after the weekend that people are taking issue with, which is ironic because you could argue that the most one-sided game was Ohio State-Tennessee, although Penn State-SMU was over pretty quick. It was over pretty quick. But nobody's arguing that Tennessee shouldn't have been in. Nobody's arguing that Clemson shouldn't have been in. They won the ACC. Most people are arguing that SMU and Indiana shouldn't have been in. But I am not a fan of this hindsight argument of after watching the games and seeing that they get blown out, then retroactively saying, oh, see, they should have never been in the first place.
Which is what he did on the set of game day, and then he did it again in this postgame hit.
Yeah, that's the part that I struggle with because, again, Alabama went to Oklahoma and laid an egg. Is Alabama a better and more talented team than SMU?
Indisputably.
Yes, of course they are. But to sit here and act like Alabama guaranteed would have played better in that game and would have won that game and made it more competitive, this is a team that couldn't score more than 3 points at a 6-6 Oklahoma team. So to go up in the cold against a top 5 Penn State team, that would have been a barn burner down to the wire. Maybe it wouldn't have been the blowout that the SMU game was with multiple pick sixes right out of the gate, but I hate doing this with the benefit of hindsight. In reality, all this weekend was kind of a point towards the anti-expansionist crowd. Because we can play this game, put the best 12 teams in, not just the teams with the most wins. But in reality, we're always going to get these type of results in the first round of an expanded college football playoff. Even in a season of parity like this one, the haves are the haves, the have-nots are the have-nots. And that's just what it is.
And the conversation to have, so let's say SMU and Indiana get closer to being haves, right? Because I can only speak for Indiana. I don't know what SMU's name, image, and likeness spending was this year, but I had no idea Indiana spent $13 million on that football team. That's have kind of money. And so if they continue on that trend, then they negate the conversation and make a more compelling case if they get another crack at it. I have no idea whether Indiana football is sustainable or not, or whether this was just a shooting star across the sky that was fun for a couple of weeks, and then you see them against Ohio State and Notre Dame, and you say, yeah, that's probably about where they should be. But that's not what their schedule was. I honestly think it's going to is Kirk Herbstreit's position going to encourage programs to schedule tougher teams? Like, is that going to challenge, let's just say, Kurt Signetti or Rhett Lashley to schedule tougher games for SMU and Indiana? I really don't think so.
It's hard to say because of how the parameters are just changing year to year with the committee. It's so hard to say what makes sense. The committee's going to change, right? The format's going to change. So based on what happened this year, it's hard for me to say, well, this is going to encourage schools to schedule less bigger opponents. But will it? Because now the conversation is about who you play, not how many wins you have. I don't know.
The best point on this is at least from what I've seen in the chat, JR says, stop trying to defend putting a team in the playoffs based on speculation. you must go off record. And I think that is the most cut and dry version of why I disagree with Kirk Herbstreit.
Which is a flawed system in and of itself because everybody has a very different path. Conferences are not created equal, and round we go.
Why couldn't the Vols meet the moment at Columbus? We'll talk about it next. Will I have enough money when I retire? When should I start to draw from Social Security? If these questions are keeping you up at night, let me introduce you to a team that's there to keep you on the right track and there to keep you through it. That's Trajan Wealth. Trajan Wealth is there to help you, and they're not just any financial firm. They are your partners in securing your financial future. They're more than just a fiduciary firm. They're a family-owned, veteran-led team that puts your needs first. Let their decades of experience specializing in retirement planning and wealth management work for you. Trajan Wealth offers free consultations to help you develop your plan and your peace of mind. So call them today at 615-270-5000. That's 615-270-5000, or visit them online at TrajanWealth.com. That's TrajanWealth.com, there to help you through all of your different financial needs. Trajan Wealth is the best in the business when it comes to securing that financial future, and they are there to make sure that you keep that peace of mind. Most importantly, advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. This is a paid advertisement.
12:02, good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Titans took an early 7-0 lead before giving up 38 points unanswered to the Colts on Sunday. The comeback effort fell short in a 38-30 loss in Indy as the Titans fall to 3-12. They gave up 335 rush yards on the day. Mason Rudolph, 23 of 34, 252 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Brian Callahan met with the media earlier today, would not make any definitive statements on the starting quarterback for the Titans when they head to Jacksonville next week. The first round of the 12-team college football playoff is in the books, and Tennessee's season is over. Routed at Ohio State, 42-17. The final, the Vols finished the year 10-3. The Predators finish out their homestand tonight, looking to follow up the OT win over the Kings Saturday. They host the Hurricanes, 7 p.m. puck drop at Bridgestone Arena. College basketball, number 1 Tennessee hosts MTSU tonight at Thompson Bowling. 6 p.m. is the tip-off. And tonight on Monday Night Football, the Packers host the Saints at Lambeau Field. New Orleans was eliminated from playoff contention with yesterday's results. Kickoff at 7:15. Westwood One coverage on The Zone begins at 7. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Vols blew a gasket on Saturday night, and not in the good way. Welcome back to the show. Final hour is upon us. Happy Monday to all of you. It was not a happy Sunday, certainly not a happy Saturday night for Tennessee, losing to Ohio State 42-17. The game was over, it felt like, basically as soon as it began. Chip Kelly was true to his word in the way that he went out there, trying to get his playmakers involved, coming off that Michigan loss, obviously. It was interesting to hear the discussion pregame from neutral parties, right? You had people that cover college football media, whether they be Pate, who obviously was on site for that game, whether they be Ross Dellinger, who's talking about just the level of apathy he was feeling around Columbus that day. I think Pat Forty tweeted something to the effect of all these tailgate lots that are usually filled outside of Ohio Stadium being empty. Forgive me if I've attributed that to the wrong person, but basically Ohio State's fan base was kind of like, yeah, whatever. And Tennessee fans were very much the opposite. They were there for blood. They were there for competitiveness. They were there to support their team. And I continue to have tremendous respect for the Vols as a fan base because they do support and they show up no matter what the distance. And I know that was not an easy trip for a lot of people to make, but a lot of people made it.
Yeah, I had friends that took 8.5 hours on the drive back on Sunday dealing with traffic.
So, you would have liked for your football team to pay it off a little better. The dialogue coming out of this game was primarily, all right, well, there's the gap. There's who you want to be across from you, and here's who you are right now.
Yeah, it was on full display. And it's the second time this season that we've seen that. First time was against Georgia. So that was my biggest takeaway. Tennessee's relevant again. That's a credit to Josh Heupel. Tennessee's back in winning in the 10-win conversation, beating Alabama, beating Florida, being included in the 12-team college football playoff, theoretically having a path to winning a national title, but they're not elite again. And that's what elite looks like.
Will Howard was 24 of 39 for 311, his second 300-yard passing game of the season. The unbelievable true freshman in Jeremiah Smith, who will be a first-round pick, arguably, depending on how this goes, the number 1 overall pick in 2027, because that's how long you got to wait until you can get your hands on a Jeremiah Smith. He was excellent, 6 catches for 103 yards. There were times when Tennessee would just would have man coverage on him, and they the defender stood no chance. I mean, this guy when he's covered, he is open, and that is the kind of playmaking talent that Ohio State possesses. Tennessee does not have a game changer. The game changer that they do have, and Dylan Sampson was dealing with injury throughout the course of that game.
This was so lopsided that it didn't.
It almost wouldn't have mattered because they got up 14-0 so quickly, and that immediately takes the way that Tennessee wanted to play out of hand. Now, Nico Iamaleava got a good portion, and this is specific to social media, got a good portion of the social media criticism. I saw comments to the effect of, well, he's just Felipe Franks in orange and white. Or he's, DJ Uiagalelei or something like that, a highly touted prospect. And the guy's a redshirt freshman. Like, it's all very, very blown out of proportion because the goal, again, was to make the 12-team college football playoff. They did accomplish that, and I'm not prepared to do mission accomplished or anything like that. I think that's a bit excessive. But they did, relative to expectation, meet expectation until they got to the game where you would have expected them to keep it within a touchdown. I told you I think Ohio State by 10. I would not have anywhere foreseen 42-17. Ryan Day is quoted after the game as saying you could tell from the jump the players had a look in their eyes that they were going to win the game. And it's not just that I can't speak to more motivated in that spot, but Ohio State's last appearance at Ohio Stadium was an embarrassment. They were humiliated by a bad Michigan team, and they responded in kind. Tennessee had the house money feel, but you could tell, you could clearly tell from my perspective, sometimes all it has to be is the eye test, which team had more to them in that spot, given the stakes that were on the line and what they were playing for and what the narrative had been around them. And there's plenty of discussion on whether Ryan Day would have been fired on the spot on the field had they lost to Tennessee and all these different things. Why couldn't the Vols meet the moment, though? Nico is inexperienced. They were trying to make it go with the QB run game. Even after he got his helmet split open and they had to get him a new helmet because that's the kind of game that Ohio State was playing. Out for blood, offensively and defensively. Nico is the most important player, playing the most important position. Is this on Nico Iamaleava?
Did you watch the game?
Yes.
So I'm pretty mind blown. You could watch the game and say this is on Nico Iamaleava.
I didn't say that. I'm asking the question because I don't believe that to be the case.
So they did not try to get the quarterback run game going. That was the only option he had. They said after the game, he had 20 rushing attempts, a career high. Josh Heupel said, yeah, that wasn't the plan for Nico to run the ball 20 times. How many of those?
The plan is not to get down 14-0 and then immediately get you taken out of your game.
How many of those were Nico scrambling? Nico desperately trying to make something happen. Tennessee had nothing downfield. Tennessee was getting blown up front. Nico Iamaleava is the only reason Tennessee moved the football at any point. The only reason that Tennessee was able to go on a quick 10-point flurry in the second quarter, plus a Will Brooks interception in the back of the end zone, to make it an 11-point game at halftime and have you going into the locker room thinking, man, as bad as that was, we're down 11 and we get the ball back in the third quarter. And then Tennessee got the ball back, quickly punted, Ohio State scored, and you knew it was over. But no, the gap was so evident in this game. The gap between Tennessee and Ohio State at every level. Their receivers better than Tennessee's defensive backs. Their offensive line better than Tennessee's defensive line, which is the second time, by the way, this year that Tennessee's D-line, that has been the biggest strength on the roster, has been swallowed up in the two biggest games of the season at Georgia and at Ohio State. No impact. None. So the gap was incredibly evident. There is nothing that brings me concern or makes me say, oh, Nico Iamaleava is not the type of quarterback that can meet this moment. When in his first year as a starter, at 20 years old as a redshirt freshman, the youngest quarterback in the playoff, he led Tennessee with his inconsistencies, yes. He took a dip midseason. He obviously got banged up. He leveled off at the end of the year and ultimately led Tennessee to a 10-win season as a redshirt freshman and is coming back for what needs to be a year 2 leap under Josh Heupel. And we saw the leap that Hendon Hooker made in year 2 under Heupel. Nico has a higher level starting point than Hooker did with a 7-win season in 2021. Nico winning 10 games in his first year as a starter. And we know the talent and the ceiling is there more so than Hendon Hooker, but he has to make that leap. But Nico was, I was surprised that's where he even wanted to start because he was about 100th on the list of things.
It's always going to be a conversation about the quarterback because the answer is Tim Banks in that defense. They were outclassed. And I'm not here to comment on schematic adjustments that I would not be capable of executing or, certainly I could articulate the places that they were beat, but I can't tell Tim Banks how to fix his defense, right? All I know is that they got beaten like a drum. You are being met, though, with a fair amount of criticism, and I'm just reading from the FNM Bank chat here. Matt, defending Nico is crazy. Bryce R., Nico made some dumb decisions. JDH, Nico versus Heupel is like Rudolph Levis versus Callahan. Mike Bell, how about 2 weeks prep and they prepped properly? Brandon Lehite just says Ellerby sucks, who I'm told is the offensive line coach, but that is a comment I think I've seen from Brandon every day that we've done the show, regardless of what the subject matter is. I am 100% with you that Nico Iamaleava is the only reason that the game was as close as it was, right? And it wasn't close.
No, 42-17, like it wasn't that close.
There is something to the level of adjustment, though, that the team is able to make on both sides. And I have talked about halftime adjustments. They're not real, right? They happen in game. Now, college halftime is a good deal longer than the NFL time, so maybe you have a higher percentage chance that a coach can break down something, or you can go through the iPad or the Surface that they're all studying and make the necessary adjustments, or whatever the case might be. Nico was not good enough to keep pace in that game. Also, the Vols do not possess elite skill position talent at this time. Certainly their wide receivers are not anywhere close to what was across from them. Not across from them literally, but their counterparts on the Ohio State sideline. Will Howard has played in big games. You could tell that he was ready for the moment. Will Howard was at home. It's all the different things that I said, why I felt like Ohio State was going to win by 10, that win and cover is the discussion that we had together on Friday, because Ryan Day has the best win percentage in college football for a reason, and he's not playing Michigan this week. It would be easy for, and it seems like a good deal of college football people defined them by that Michigan game.
Yes, they did.
And that is not who that team has been at all, save for that one moment. Tennessee was closer to what they have been all season. Now, obviously, it's a disaster level, but I'm talking about offensively. Even when Ohio State's ability to get points on the board very, very quickly immediately takes you out of who you want to be offensively. I am very curious to see what the narrative around Josh Heupel is now that their season is over.
Yeah, there needs to be improvements across the board. To me, saying Nico was not good enough to let Tennessee keep pace with Ohio State is just the wrong way to talk about this game. Tennessee was not good enough to keep pace with Ohio State.
Okay.
There was not one area on the field where the Vols had an advantage. I don't know what kind of performance Nico could have had on Saturday to make this a competitive game. That's how wide the gap looked on Saturday. Truly, I don't know what he could have done. They didn't have a run game. They were being torched all day. They couldn't get a stop, allowing explosive plays on defense. So
God knows they couldn't get a completion to save their life.
I mean, Nico, he dealt with a couple of drops as well. Tennessee wasn't able to get separation on the outside at wide receiver. So I don't know what Nico wasn't perfect in this game. I know that. Nobody was. But Tennessee was not good enough in this game. It's not a conversation of Nico was not good enough in this game. The fact that we're even having kind of tiptoeing around that, did the redshirt freshman Nico Iamaleava have a slightly disappointing season for a guy who led Tennessee to 10-2, which is what Tennessee did with Hendon Hooker 2 years ago.
You don't think that there are Vols fans out there? I'm genuinely asking, because I'm just taking what I saw, what I watched, versus what the conversation is being had around it. And so much of it seems to be centered around the wrong things, which, to your point, are Nico Iamaleava. But that is the easiest conversation. That's the easiest version of a conversation for people to have.
I'll put it this way. He is a redshirt freshman who led Tennessee to a 10-2 season and a spot in the college football playoff. Let's rewind 5 years ago. Let's rewind 5 years ago.
Can we not do that, please?
Let's go back to 2018.
Why would you even pose that hypothetical? Do you see how triggered Jackson just got?
Let's go back to 2018, 2019, and tell a Tennessee fan that your redshirt freshman quarterback of 2024 is going to lead you to 10 wins over Bama and Florida, and a spot in the college football playoff. And the discourse immediately after is going to be, was he disappointing? That's insane to me. That's hard for me to wrap my head around.
There's a commenter on YouTube saying, fire Colts, saying, quit making excuses, Nico was crap. So that's what you're up against this week, although you're not really, because you're getting ready to take the week on vacation. So we'll take your phone calls on the Vols coming up next, 615-737-1045. We'll also pivot back to the Titans, because obviously they are in a much different situation, not competing for a playoff game, much less they're just trying to figure out how the hell to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars on Sunday. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. We got bowl games on right now. It's a splattering in the Myrtle Beach Bowl. UTSA up 27-0 on Coastal Carolina right now on their home field.
Yeah, that's tough. Get to host a bowl game and not competitive.
So Vols not competitive necessarily in this game. It was over basically as it began. It was 21 points for Ohio State in the first quarter, and we talked about the essential nature of the Vols starting fast. And that's always important for any football team. How you start very much dictates whether you get to continue to play your style of game or continue to dictate terms. And Tennessee didn't get that opportunity. We've gotten a couple of tweets on this. We're going to get some phone calls too. Nathan, or Bubba Nathan on Twitter says, the truth about the Vols offense this season is a lack of tempo and how healthy the top wide receivers were. Squirrel, Brew, and Thornton have all been up and seem to get banged up every game. How much did those guys probably playing hurt most of the season set this offense back? And that's, listen, Squirrel White, to his credit, he gets out there and tries to play, and I know he's been playing through a variety of different things all season long. We know that Dante Thornton has missed some time. We know that Brew McCoy's been banged up, and that's a big one. Colby Smith also tweets us and says, UT face mask on the first drive that would have stopped Ohio State was critical. Ohio State definitely elite, but I could feel the air being let out of the room when they got that 15 yards. They go on to score. The rest is history. Where did the two of you watch this game?
I was at a local establishment in East Nashville.
Were you surrounded by friends and loved ones?
I was.
Did they hold you afterwards?
I was. There's no earthly way we could sit here and say that, I don't know, if they don't get that face mask. Ohio State was better in every single facet. Yeah. Like Tennessee did not win a singular matchup in this game. But yeah, obviously that was a huge, in real time at the moment, felt like a huge momentum swing because we did talk about what if Ohio State gets the football and goes on a quick 3 and out? What is the vibe in that building? It wouldn't have changed the outcome. I mean, Tennessee got the ball after giving up that touchdown that followed the face mask on the third down sack and couldn't do anything with it. 3 and out. Ohio State scores again, and then you thought, oh, this could be a rout, and it was. But there are a lot of questions that need to be answered that Josh Heupel will have to kind of look into his own program as to why the offense never looked like it did, even remotely, in 2022 against Power 4 opponents. There were opportunities for it to look that way, and, either it was Nico Iamaleava having accuracy issues, wide receivers having issues with drops. It felt like they just couldn't get everything right at the same time. But also, there has been a great lack of tempo with this team this year. I don't know if it's defenses adjusting. I don't know if it's issues at the wide receiver position, which I would say was the most disappointing position group of the season for Tennessee, was wide receiver. You thought you were going to get more out of Chris Brazzell, who was a big get out of the portal from Tulane. Brew McCoy was kind of the security blanket, but, didn't have the season that he's capable of. Dante Thornton popped up with some big plays, but there was just no consistency across the board at the wide receiver position. And, Tennessee was not the offense that we thought they could be this year at all.
615-737-1045 is the number if you want to join the discussion. Tennessee loses 42-17 in the college football playoff at Ohio State. Their season ends with 10 wins, but a disappointing finish, even if it was the most expected point that this team was going to get, the most realistic point that this team was going to get to. It would have been an upset, obviously, had they had advanced into the college football playoff quarterfinals, but they don't get the opportunity to do that, and they will have to reevaluate a great many things as they get ready for 2025. Let's go to Tommy.
Thanks, Buck. As a ball for life, I agree with your co-host. I think Nico was the only one that had the mental toughness Saturday to perform. I think the cold weather hurt us. We had no separation from the receivers. Our offensive line got whipped. Our defensive line got whipped. And you started to see it not only in the Georgia game, we learned nothing, but also it started back in the Arkansas game. Our defense sometimes is not even ready when the ball is snapped. And so, but I don't think you can blame it on Nico. I'll hang up and listen. Thanks.
Yeah, I understand the criticism from Lucas saying if you're criticizing Nico today, if you have the most criticism for Nico, then you probably did not watch that game closely.
There have been moments this year, the first half against Alabama, right? The Arkansas game, where I have said, okay, Nico, he has to be better. He did not meet the moment there. To his credit, he bounced back and he met the moment in the second half of the Bama game. But that wasn't even a thought that remotely crossed my mind in the Ohio State game. It was simply Ohio State is in a different tier than Tennessee. And it doesn't matter how good or bad your quarterback play. You are not going to beat Ohio State unless you get up into that tier. And the only way to get up into that tier is talent acquisition.
Yeah, people are going to box score scout today and say, he had 100 yards passing and his completion percentage was awful and all these other things. But there were clear and obvious reasons why he was not going to be able to give them a legitimate, why he was going to be, it was going to be such an uphill climb for a player that has that little experience. And again, it's not to excuse the loss. The loss by that margin is inexcusable, but the bulk of the blame should be put on the defense inability to hang with Ohio State and simply that you are not there yet.
Yeah,
and
the inability to protect up front.
The situation in this particular game specifically, it's compounded by a couple of different things. Like, it's kind of like Brian Callahan's, performative rant last week about the team being soft and then them coming out and giving up the most rushing yards an NFL team has given up this year. Tennessee coming out of the tunnel shirtless and, not fearing the cold. It leaves you open to any manner of criticisms at that point about a team in the SEC, and it's, been SEC, it just means more, and all the pregame hype around the Vols fans and this, and that should not be taken away from the Vols fans. It's just the team did not meet the moment in the way that the fan base was prepared to.
So in 2022, the offense was this great equalizer. Like Tennessee, talent-wise, was nowhere close to Alabama in 2022, or even LSU in that season. They boat raced LSU on the road, and they beat Bama at home because the offense was such an equalizer, nobody could figure out how to stop it. The talent profile was raised in 2024, but that offense was not the equalizer that it was 2 years ago. So you have to continue to raise your level in talent, and it has to be better than as much praise as Heupel gets for recruiting wins and how it's better than we expected, and the David Sanders Jr. get. That's big. Tennessee's got the number 11 class in the country for 2025, right? A borderline top 10 class. Great. You look at everybody in front of them, Tennessee has the number 8 recruiting class in the SEC. So if you're not going to have the offense that's going to equalize like it did in 2022, then you've got to figure out a way to climb that ladder in terms of talent. And if that has to be in the portal, where Tennessee's got to do more than bring in a couple, decent quality starters like they did last year, then so be it. But that's going to be a big part of the discussion this offseason. Okay, great. You got a number 11 class. You got a 5-star tackle. It's the number 8 class in the SEC.
Is there a ceiling to Josh Heupel?
That's the question, yeah. And that is the fair question that is posed after the end of this season.
Because there's a grass isn't always greener argument to be made on behalf of Josh Heupel, and nobody's calling for, I don't think people are calling for Josh Heupel's job.
No, Josh Heupel's going to have every opportunity
but there will be some level of dialogue around this coach from a fan base that is this particularly kind of passionate regarding whether or not this is the person that is capable of getting them over the top in the same way. I'm looking at, like, they're not parallels because one made the playoffs this year and the other one is a catastrophe at 3-12. But there are a couple of different conversations to be had before we pivot to some Titans talk here and continue to take your phone calls on the Vols about just what the ceiling for the program is and then how much the coach in place with that program is capable of elevating them even further.
Well, he's going to have every opportunity to show that that's not the ceiling. Whether it is or not, I don't know. If Heupel can get his team to win big games on the road against top 10 opponents, something he hasn't done yet, I don't know. But he's going to get every opportunity to prove that.
I'm going to take a line from Brian Callahan before the Titan season start. You earn the right to have expectations. Obviously, Brian Callahan's team has earned nothing. I have zero expectations for them. They're playing out the stretch. Everybody's playing out the stretch on the Titan season. The Vols now have earned the right to have expectations, but you know what? I think Vols fans are expecting that what happened on Saturday night to be the floor for those level of expectations. And the noise just gets, the noise can get to you at a place like Tennessee that is a fishbowl. It's very much a fishbowl and one of the most passionate, insane fan bases in the country. 615-737-1045, the number. Let's go to Jimmy next.
Good afternoon.
Hey.
Happy holidays, everybody.
To you as well.
absolutely agree with Lucas. I think that's any sane Tennessee fan could see that Nico was basically running for his life.
Now, wait, that sounds like an oxymoron to me, Jimmy. Sane Tennessee fans are not what I associate.
It is a bit of an oxymoron.
It is a bit of an oxymoron, yes, but maybe I am one of the few sane Tennessee fans. But it reminded me a lot of 91 Fiesta Bowl, Penn State, and Tennessee got boat raced. Ironically, the final score was 42-17, and I'll never forget watching that game with my friends thinking, yeah, we got some work to do. You know, we're not as good as Penn State or not as physical or whatever. And, you know, I think sometimes it takes that to make a change. You know, 4 or 5 years later, they're national champions. So I think Tennessee is in a great place. I think Heupel is our guy. And I'm very bullish on the future of Tennessee. So thank you, guys. Have a Merry Christmas, okay?
You too, Jimmy. Thank you for the call.
I'm glad you brought that up, Jimmy, because why don't we have a brief history lesson here? The year was 1997.
Oh, shut up.
The Tennessee Volunteers were celebrating the holiday season as an 11-win football team preparing for a big matchup in the Orange Bowl against the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Christmas cheer was in the air as the Vols dreamed of a national championship. But then on January 2nd, 1998, the Volunteers were boat raced by Nebraska. The final score, 42-17.
I hope you got rights clearance on this music.
Tennessee lost a lot of talent from that team, most notably quarterback Peyton Manning. And then the 1998 season came. Tennessee opened against the Orange of Syracuse. That sparked an undefeated season and a national championship run. We fast forward to 2024. Tennessee's national championship hopes were dashed by Ohio State. The final score, 42-17. And who does Tennessee, Buck, open the season against in 2025? That's right, the Orange of Syracuse. So maybe, just maybe, a 42-17 loss to Ohio State was just the Christmas miracle that the Tennessee football program needed.
That is the highest level of production that this show aspires to is an embarrassment. Shame on both of you.
That was great.
Out here with your fight song after getting smoked 42-17.
Just what the doctor ordered.
Okay. Yes. This speaks to the oxymoron of sane Vols fans, because you know what? There are absolutely people within the sound of our voices that 100% believe that. Congratulations to you on being the lead dope of the tinfoil hat conspiracy theories.
Got to go get a receiver in the portal.
Yeah, that start there before you give me all these different the history that matters absolutely zero, other than these are things that happened and you can go back and look at them fondly perhaps. It has absolutely no bearing on what the future of this program is, right, wrong, or indifferent.
All I did was state facts.
Tyler is in California next. Excellent work by Tyler. No, it's not worth it.
Goodbye.
I'm not in the mood for dial tone songs or dial tone sounds. Quickly. Well, I don't know. I don't even want to.
You've got all week to do that.
What is the Titans' biggest issue? Doesn't that sound like a punishment? You've got all week to talk about what the damn Tennessee Titans' biggest issue is. The vein in my neck, the way that it's throbbing right now, thinking about all the damn problems that they have, and I have a week to do it.
Do that without me, if you would. Sean on the F&M Bank chat says, all the Vols fans and all the radio hosts were talking so much smack, and not once did y'all even acknowledge the insane talent for Ohio State, and that just maybe that talent would show up.
I literally picked Ohio State by 10, you idiot.
And I don't think he's talking about you. It's not always about you. But
in my world, it is on my show.
That is fair because I think there was an acknowledgement that Ohio State is arguably the most talented roster in the country.
There was a case for Tennessee, had they been able to play their game, to be competitive, if not win, cover.
If you ask
me,
I
would have acknowledged that case. That case obviously did not come to fruition because they melted down.
If you asked me, if you were to set up the scenario for me and say the best version of Ohio State shows up against the best version of Tennessee, who wins? I would have gone Ohio State. That was the question, though. I mean, that's all anybody could talk about with Ohio State. Where is this program at mentally?
Yeah, you had no idea.
No clue.
You had no idea what they were going to come
variable.
out. The pregame vibes were horrible for Ohio State. It was not entirely Vols, but that 30,000 or ballpark 30,000 of you made the trip and were as passionate and ready to go. Again, more ready to go than your football team was. There was no way that you could have expected Ohio State to come out like that, other than that they have better players, and if they get their better players involved, their better players are better than your better players.
Exactly. And that's what this is for Tennessee. Like, we could talk all about Nico Iamaleava while Dylan Sampson was hurt. The reality is Tennessee is not talented enough yet to compete for and win a national championship. That will be the next step. Tennessee is relevant again. They are not elite again. That showed on Saturday, and that's what this offseason, a big part of this offseason will be about for Josh Heupel.
Last call for phone calls. If you got them, I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
Hey, Lucas Panzika here to tell you about Hattie B's, where you should go for lunch today at any one of their 7 locations. The Factory at Franklin, Lower Broadway, Melrose, Midtown, Nashville West, even the Nashville Airport, and now at Nissan Stadium. Remember, the Factory at Franklin location is open at 7 a.m. for breakfast. If you want to skip the line, download the Hattie B's app, order for pickup, and skip the line. Walk in, get your Hattie B's famous hot chicken, and head right back to the office. By the way, you get a free dessert just by downloading the Hattie B's app. Hattie B's, a family-run restaurant serving up your favorite Southern food and authentic Nashville hot chicken. It is the best in town. Bring the heat to your event. If you're having a party, wedding, or corporate function, maybe a holiday party, let Hattie be your guest of honor. Go to HattieB.com and download the Hattie B's app today.
All right. So, unfortunately for Titans fans and Vols fans, if this weekend of football wasn't enough punishment, Lucas is leaving for the rest of the week. So, you're stuck with me and Jackson. Show is not on Wednesday, but that's the only day that the show is not on. Titans have practice tomorrow, which is typically their off day because they're off Christmas Day, but they will practice Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. So we will do the show Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. So since tomorrow is Christmas Eve, but Lucas isn't going to be here, are we doing show Christmas today?
Does show Christmas just mean come back to a couple of, like Jackson play a couple bumps?
No.
Christmas music coming
You
back?
didn't get me Christmas presents?
No.
So
No, I did not.
to keep your Christmas presents? The two of you ingrates?
The gift that somebody mailed to the station that you are claiming and pretending to come from you?
No, the two very thoughtful gift bags that I put together for the two of you this morning. Jackson, come in here and get your Christmas present.
What's in them?
Well, why don't you come over here and find out? Since you didn't get me anything.
I don't feel like getting up. Just tell me what's in there.
You don't feel like getting up to get your free stuff that has food in it. I'm surprised you didn't smell it.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Well, that changes things.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
No. Go ahead. I want people to know how ungrateful you are.
All right, what's up?
Jackson's in here. He can open them. Let's take a call while Jackson opens a gift.
We can do that. You can take your Christmas present and get out.
Oh, hey, buddy.
Let's go to Tyler up next. Hey, Tyler.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good.
You there?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I lost you there for a second. I just wanted to say that I think that Saturday night, the Buckeyes would have beat any team in the college playoff brackets. We were going against a team at home that was galvanized and united by an embarrassing loss. And I just don't think it really truly shows what we were capable of this year. Their QB had a heck of a night, much like Georgia Beck did in their game against us. And I'm proud of our team for this year and the way that they've been resilient. Disappointed with Saturday night, but overall still proud to be a Vols fan, and with a 10-3 record, something I've looked forward to and would have loved to have had many times over the last 25 years. But my question would be, as far as dialing up pressure, we didn't against Georgia very much, and we didn't on Saturday night. And is that just us not being physical and capable of doing that, or scheming? And I'll hear what y'all got to say.
Yeah, that was a criticism of Tim Banks against Georgia, that they didn't send enough pressure. I don't know. That wasn't a takeaway that I had from Saturday. My biggest takeaway was just Tennessee got gashed over the top over and over and over. And at the end of the day, the defensive backfield was supposed to be a strength for Tennessee. It was still edge Ohio State, and we understood that. The question was, will they utilize those guys the way they didn't against Michigan? And, Tennessee, got a little bit of pressure on Will Howard, but he maneuvered the pocket really well, had the game of his career. Anything that a caller poses on, could they have done this differently? Ohio State's just a better football team. That's just what it is. And I don't know what Tennessee could have done to get an edge. The only thing that could have given Tennessee an edge would be out of their control. It would be Ohio State approaching that game the same way they approached the Michigan game, which, to their credit, they didn't. And they played like a national championship contender.
Jackson, what's in your bag?
A candle.
Ooh.
I haven't opened the bag yet. I took Lucas's, so I know what's in Lucas's bag.
What's in my bag?
Lucas got a candle, some beef jerky, some chocolate, and a card from Buck.
Oh, look at that.
I love you and I appreciate you. And I want to do this for the rest of my life, buddy. Will you marry me?
Oh, man.
What does your card say?
The same thing.
That's not true at all. Your card says, use that $50 Visa gift card that I gave you towards new clothes because I'm tired of you showing up to work looking like a hungover teenager.
We all show up like hungover teenagers.
Yeah.
Wearing a quarter zip.
Well, you're just a boring hungover teenager then. Eli is next.
Hey, gentlemen, and Lucas. I hope y'all are having an amazing day. The Vols may have lost, and that just makes my Monday even greater. Because once again, the Tennessee Vols act like raccoons when the spotlight shined on them in the postseason. Come sit on the couch with the rest of us and have a great time watching these playoffs. Wham, wham, wham. Have a Merry Christmas. Anchor down.
There it is.
A Vanderbilt fan. We found one.
There it is.
That's the first Vandy call of the year. We didn't even get him after the Alabama win.
We did not. We haven't gotten a single one. We will join you on that couch, Eli. I hope you've kept it warm for us. But yes, that is fair. That all of the trash talk and criticism should be welcomed.
Vanderbilt
That's how
having
this works.
The longest football season of the 3 football teams in this. Well, I know Memphis had a bowl game as well. So
yeah, no, that's true. Technically, Vanderbilt's postseason was longer than Tennessee's. They played Georgia Tech in the Birmingham Bowl Friday. I'll be in Birmingham. Should I go?
No. You're going to the Music City Bowl, you sicko. Luther Burden's not even playing.
No, he's not.
All right. Ready to do some polls? No, I'm not. I'll use this NWI t-shirt somebody sent me to suffocate you.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. What is the biggest reason the Vols could not meet the moment on Saturday? Robert says they are not as good as Vol Nation thinks. They beat 2 teams with winning records this year. The only playoff team they played beat them by 14. They, like Indiana, benefited from a softer conference schedule.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
It is fair because going into the year, you thought, okay, there are some challenges on this schedule. NC State, sleeper team in the ACC.
NC State was not competitive.
Oklahoma, could make a push for the playoff.
That was more competitive, but not really.
No, Tennessee's opponents did them no favors in terms of how their seasons went, and it did drag down Tennessee's strength of schedule, and it's fair. Bill says not enough roster. They had barely enough skill players on offense to finish the game. Secondary got exposed. Would have been nice for a few of the portal guys to stay a few more weeks, but the outcome would have been the same. That's the most basic answer.
Yeah,
talent.
I mean,
It's talent.
That's what it is, and that's at the college football level. That's all it has to be. There are coaches that can provide you a plus on the sidelines and things like that, but for the most part, do you have better players?
What is the Titans' biggest issue right now? Greg says the inability of the front office to address the right side of the offensive line, and to this point, the coaching staff's inability to have the team ready to play each week. I will say we haven't been talking that much about the O-line. I mean, they're not giving up 7 to 8 sacks a game anymore, but plenty of other problems have popped up. Craig says quarterback play is atrocious, but after giving up 300 rush yards, linebacker play has to be up there too. Randy lays it out. The correct answer is yes. There isn't a single aspect of this team that is not an issue in some way, shape, or form. That's the crux of it. Well, the question, what is the Titans' biggest issue right now? That is a hard conversation to have, and it's a hard thing to pinpoint, and that's not a good problem to have.
I can't wait to have it for the rest of the damn week while you're out.
Which was the more embarrassing loss, Titans or Vols? 61.7% say Vols.
No, it's the Titans. It's the Titans.
I don't know, man.
I'm
really?
So, yes.
The 3-12 football team losing in Week 16 more embarrassing than the playoff team that
the quarterback
sent 30,000
that beat them completed 6 passes, and they were down 38-7, and they gave up the most rushing yards in a game this season and the most rushing yards by the franchise since 1961. The Vols were in a playoff game. The Titans were a joke.
More embarrassing to the fan base. It's the Vols.
Oh, it's the Vols.
Without question.
Oh, for sure. But it's not the fan base. The more embarrassing loss. Which team should be more embarrassed today? It's the Titans.
What is one word to describe the first round of the college football playoff? John says boring. Mike says underwhelming. Michael says predictable. Jack says expected.
Predictable feels about right. Predictable. I mean, I don't know. Once you saw SMU in that ACC championship game and the lights being too bright for them there against a Clemson team that we know to be, a little fraudulent is probably not the word, but just not what we typically associate Clemson to be. You knew it was going to be bad, but not that bad. Indiana, I did not. I guess did we both pick Indiana?
Yeah,
I think we did. Yeah,
I got caught up in Kurt Cignetti saying cool things.
I did too, and it looked a lot cooler, or it seemed a lot less cool when he's punting on 4th downs, which are very, very manageable after talking a lot of smack. Listen, I like the bravado. I like that he tried to manifest it. I completely understand why Notre Dame fans are rubbing it in Indiana fans' noses today.
Those are the polls. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Lucas is gone for the rest of the week. Show tomorrow, 10 a.m., primetime tonight at 7. We'll talk about what Brian Callahan had to say. See you then.